Yeah. Awesome. We just keep talking like we're talking, and then he just goes right over the top of us and does the intro. And
nice.
There we
Got
go.
a little music going and everything.
Oh, I know.
I love it.
That's it.
Sweet.
That's it. Ed Begany, thank you for being here, bud.
It's my pleasure.
This is going to be awesome. It's going to be a fun time.
Give me an opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll get all of 3 people listening to us, and it'll be their pleasure.
That's awesome. And I'll probably be one of them.
So that's right. Cool. Oh yeah, I always listen to them. And it's funny because the good ones, like the one we did last week with John Solis, and the one that I did with Wes, and those were really good to the point where I'm listening to them, and I try to listen to these that I've already done to help me because this is all new to me.
Sure.
So I'm trying to be a student of being on the air and talking and try not to talk too much. And, there's a lot of that stuff's going on. And yet I'll actually find myself interested in what I already know the outcome is.
Right.
It's like watching a movie you watch 3 or 4 times. So
sure.
Yeah, I enjoy it. So, man, first of all, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for being here.
Friends and family.
Yeah, and to Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Oh, that is good. They're really good. So let's start. Let's start out with who you are, what you're doing. Let's talk about your journey down. You're a principal at Huntington Beach High. You're also you were saying that you were doing something. What college was it?
Concordia University in Irvine.
Yeah.
I'm an adjunct professor there as well. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I teach in their MCAA program, and it's a Master's in Communications for Coaches is what it turns out to be. So it's a coach-driven. They approached me back in 2014, so I guess it's 8 years I've been doing that. Mm-hmm. And they approached me, and they asked me if I'd be interested in teaching in this program, and it was kind of something I've always wanted to do, be an adjunct professor because of being in high school, and it worked out. It's awesome. It's great, and it keeps me connected. I still continue to learn. Plus, a lot of times the coaches might be college coaches. Natron Means was actually one of my students, which was interesting because then I was able to call and talk to him a little bit. Mm-hmm. He played for the Chargers, kind of fun, and it's cool because I love helping coaches because I was in that, and they have a California Coaches Association week-long opportunity for coaches to come back and talk in a clinic. Mm-hmm. And I do that every year and have done that. Last year it was online, but the previous years it's been in person. And we'll visit USC and different places like Mission Viejo High School and St. John Bosco High School and stuff like that. And they take it. We all talk about weightlifting, but how it pertains to what we do with each sport. So it's multiple sports, not just football. It's a lot of different sports.
Yeah. So when you were saying that it's communication for coaches, what does that actually mean?
In college, coaches have to have a master's degree in order to coach. I don't know if a lot of people know that. Mm-hmm. So they go back. A lot of them have their 4-year degrees. They start coaching, and then they get into a program. And what this does is it's a relative program instead of just getting a generic master's in education or master's in science or master's in biology or English or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's not just a master's in education, it's a master's in coaching. And it's everybody who is in the program has coached or is coaching. And so it's kind of a concept of teaching for coaches by coaches. And we all obviously have my master's degree and stuff like that. I have multiple degrees. And so it's fun though. It's because I'm able to pull on. I coached football for 35 years total. I lose track.
Yeah.
By the gray hair, I kind of remember that it's over 30. So I've been in a lot of different places, and it's been fun. Yeah. And I'm learning too. I learn from my students and my colleagues, and it keeps me in touch with.
Yeah, I'm anxious to talk about your coaching experiences because you and I in the past have sat down and we have talked a lot about it. So I'm looking forward to that aspect of it. But I'm curious on your teaching, Coach. I didn't know, first of all, that there was an actual course that the coaches can take.
Yeah.
But going back to communication, is it teaching them how to
It's
communicate?
It's multiple. Multiple courses. Like,
Okay.
Like going back to my own master's, I had to have I want to say 13 classes. Some master's classes are 11, and I think Concordia is 11. So you take 11 different classes, and it could be a variety of things. It could be theory of football, basketball, those types of things. It could be theory of sport. It could be nutrition, and I teach weightlifting, and I teach advanced lifting, which is also, it prepares them for the NSCA certification. So in theory, they should be able to take that course and be certified. So it's really cool. There's lots of different classes, but there's a core class to take. So each coach has to take a certain amount, and then they graduate from it. And each class is 11 weeks long. And so every 11 weeks, you can start a new class. And generally, people are done in about 2 years, 2.5 years to get their master's in that.
So do you follow these coaches all the way through that period of time, or
no,
just specific
one.
on your?
Yeah, and a lot of them, a lot of their coaches, I'm probably their third or fourth, but occasionally I'll be their first adjunct professor, and it's really cool because the classes are pretty small, so I'm able to spend a lot of time with them, even though it's online. And people think, you teach weightlifting online? How do you do that? Well, a lot of it's theory, and a lot of it's, concepts of testing and how often do you test, load, a variety of weightlifting terms, and what are you lifting to do, core lifts versus alternative lifts or different lifts like that. So it's trying to teach coaches, because a lot of them don't. Some are high school coaches that, they don't have a strength coach, and some are big time coaches in high school that have a strength coach, and some are college coaches that have a strength program or a whole core of strength coaches that come in and lift like at SC or something. And the head coach at Hawaii a couple of years ago, the head basketball coach, was taking my class, so it was interesting to talk to him and find out what he's looking at. And a lot of coaches at that level don't really participate too much in weightlifting with their students or their athletes, because at the college level, they have training table and stuff like that. So they're kind of, okay, show up at this time, we lift from this time to this time, but now it's part of the 28 hours a week that they're doing it. In high school, I believe it's 19 hours or 18 for CIF. You can't do more than that. So you actually have to turn something into CIF to verify how many hours you are with your team. That includes practice time, weightlifting time, stuff like that.
So they actually have limit on the amount of hours now that they can.
They do,
together.
When I was at Mater Dei coaching there, there was no limit. I mean, we were. Yeah. I mean, those days were long.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I was gonna bring up too, is weightlifting. I did some coaching at the local high school here for strength training, and you and I had a lot of conversations about it. And strength training has changed so much over the years. I mean, I was just having this conversation with one or two guests back, and about how long I've been going to the gym, and it's over 45 years.
Yeah.
Of going into the gym, and there's been so much. Oh, it was with John Solis, the one that you listened to. Yeah. And how much has changed over that period of time. I mean, in the very beginning, it was some dark hole little gym you went in, and all you did is just pump iron.
Right.
And that was it. There wasn't really thought about
why, when, how much, load, reps, those types of things.
Those types of things, yeah. It was just go until you hurt.
Yeah,
then you came back the next day and go until you hurt. And I can probably imagine how many injuries.
Oh, without a doubt. Not to interrupt you, but like when I was in high school, we would lift in the morning. We'd do circuit training in the morning. 3 sets in the morning, and barely almost puke half the time. They had puke trash cans. Excuse the terms, but this is back in the early '80s. And because they gave you 15 seconds at each station, and then they gave you 5 to 6 seconds to rotate to the next station. Under 27 stations in the weight room at St. Paul High School in Santa Fe Springs. And I still remember we were listening to Fame in the background because the cheerleaders were practicing, and that's the song that they were using. Yeah, so I get to know the song Fame pretty good. And by the end of the first day, I didn't want to hear that song ever again. But we would come back in the afternoon, and the skill guys would do passing league.
Right.
And our line coach would put us back in the weight room, and then we would do 5 sets of 5, stuff like that. So we were actually double lifting, which is something you don't do.
You don't. Yeah.
And we're lifting against each other in the morning. We're doing, your goal is to get 12 reps. So you're kind of bodybuilding lifting in the morning, and at night you turned out to be powerlifting. And after I became a strength coach, I'm like, ooh, yeah, we weren't doing anything, but we won. And I think what we didn't realize is we were training our mental toughness in the morning more than our bodies, even though we pushed our bodies, and I was in the best shape of my life,
right?
In high school. So
yeah, well, and also too, you can get away with a lot when you're training young kids. I mean, they're resilient,
right?
They, not that it's the right thing to do. And it's, and you don't want to push them too hard because there are all kinds of other things with they're still growing. Their attachment points are still not complete. There's so many different things.
Not fully developed
at all. And you're pushing them to limits, which is the downside. But fortunately, they are somewhat resilient.
And their nutrition is questionable at best.
At best. At best.
Hamburger and 4 hot dogs.
Yeah. When I was a strength coach, that was one of the things I was constantly talking to them about. Hey, I know you're 16 years old. You're going to go to McDonald's. You're going to get the fries. You're going to get the milkshake. Just limit it. Have a little bit of determination to be whatever you want to be. And part of that is all the nutrition. Or I talked to them about hydration. Man, you guys got to drink.
Huge.
You got to drink. And they would tell me, they'd pull up, a little, 12-ounce bottle. I had one of these this morning.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, no, you got to have a gallon.
Right. Exactly. It's really big. And just like sleep, hydration are 2 big factors when you're trying to get the most out of your body. And as a young person, those are the 2 things that you're probably not getting enough of, because you stay up late, you go to bed late, you wake up early, you get up and do it all over again. And if you're playing a sport, multiple sports, then it's running into each other. And back then we didn't really have, I think Atari was the biggest game we had going on, except, now the kids have all the PlayStation and all that stuff.
Oh, just the social media and
Correct. I mean, in the phone, so we weren't connected. I mean, my phone had a 19-foot cord that, that would extend down the hallway, and then I could take the phone into my bedroom so my parents couldn't hear, but my brother would be on the other end listening to it because I'd be yelling at him, get off the phone. I'm not on the phone yet, but you can hear him,
Yeah, that was, but also too, back then I can remember, and I'm going back 100 years when I was playing sports in high school, and they'd do the two-a-days.
Yeah.
And, I always laugh at, people that, do, CrossFit today. I said, all CrossFit is two-a-days.
Correct.
It just, you change the name. That's all it is.
A lot of injury in CrossFit now.
Yeah.
I do a segment in one of my classes about CrossFit. I think it has its purpose, but and not that we're talking about CrossFit, but
no, right.
Just talking about that. I mean, I think mentally it's a good way to challenge yourself, but a lot of high injury because people our age are trying to do stat stuff and your joints, you just can't do it.
You can't do it. It's not sustainable.
No.
It's awesome if you want to do a short program of it, and you monitor yourself closely, but to do that as an endeavor to get in shape and stay in shape, it's just sooner or later, if you're not injured, sooner or later, the injury is going to arise.
Absolutely.
And again, that's why I go back to young kids being so resilient, because I can remember the two-a-days. You get there in the morning and I was at a period of time too where you didn't get water.
Right. Well, coach called you names if
you said, "Hey, I need."
You want water? That means you went another hour and a half without water.
Yeah.
So we'll teach you.
Yeah.
And that's not the concept now. With everything we know, and that's what's changed. I think over a period of years, from like in high school when I was being lifted by my line coach who knew nothing about strength training, and our head coach, knew strength training in the 50s, Marion Ansich,
Right.
and his concept was, this is what I learned and this is what we're going to do. And it wasn't science-based. It wasn't, no coach kept track of the reps, the load, how many times have we lifted 90%? Well, nobody knew that. And nor did I as a young kid. And the irony is, when I got to become a coach at Monterey High School, that was one of the things. I mean, I monitored, and in the off season, I would meet with our trainers, and we would go over all our injuries and say, okay, like one year we had 3 broken collarbones and multiple arm issues. And so that was the most I've ever had collarbone. Now, one of them was a freak thing, but the other 2, like, you normally don't get broken collarbones, occasionally. Yep. But 3 in the varsity only over a period of 14 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm like, okay, so I've got to strengthen the shoulder girdle. I'm doing something wrong as a coach. Right. And from that point on, we didn't have problems, but that's because I altered what we were doing.
Yeah, one of the things that I found the most difficult was proper form. Because the classes that I took on, the athletes that I took on were freshmen just coming in. So they're just out of middle school. And I would ask them, okay, and I'm talking 60, 65 athletes coming in. And I'd ask them, okay, how many of you have worked out before? How many of you been in the gym? And literally I'd probably get 3, 4 out of 60-something that have any experience whatsoever.
Right.
And for me, the first month was just solely put on, there was no weights, empty bars. I'd make everybody do the reps at the same time. I would count because I wanted it.
Breathing.
I want the breathing.
Correct.
I don't want it too fast. I want it too slow.
Correct.
And I would watch them. I would watch, on a bench press, if their back was arching, or if they're squatting, if they're bending over. That to me was the most important, and especially as incoming freshmen, that we're going to be moving upward onto the JV and the varsity over a period of time, and we're expected to know these things.
Yeah, 100%. One of the things that I learned early on, I made PVC pipes, took 7-foot PVC, capped them off, put sand in them, and we used them as bars. So I could teach them how to power clean, teach them how to bench, and then progress to the bar itself, like you're saying. And we would roughly take about 2 weeks. It'd take me 3 days to go through the whole weight room, about what to do every single lift and how to do every single lift. And after that first year at Mater Dei, it was really cool because, and I did this at my other schools too, St. Paul, Warren High School, all the schools that I've been at, La Habra High School. But the seniors became kind of mini coaches because they'd gone through my program so much. And they lifted really hard themselves, but they would then, it was an honor for them to teach the freshmen, and it also created that brotherhood. And but technique, 100%. I mean, at Mater Dei, we went to clean and jerk contests down in San Diego. There's a national one, and I want to say in 12 years, I think we won it 4 times. I think I came in second 4 times, and then third another 3 times. And these are Olympic lifters that are going on to train in Colorado. So we're going against them. And so we're a football team. So, and it was all weight categories, but it was clean and jerk. And, it was an honor to be part of that and I'd bring 25 athletes and they'd be like, who are these guys? And it's a football team, and they're looking at us going, who are you? And I'm like, well, we're Mater Dei High School. And they're like, okay, this is for real lifters. And I'm like, we'll compete.
Be patient.
We'll compete. And then all of a sudden we won it the first year, and they're like, are you? And they weighed us, so because they didn't want people, if you're in a 200-pound class or 165s or 110s or whatever, and it's all kilo about it. They were like, you can't cheat, coach. And I'm like, I don't plan on cheating at all.
No.
We just want to compete. I mean, and, it gives athletes, competition is the number one thing I've found in my coaching career, is makes athletes better, makes us better as people. If we compete strive to be better. And
that's really relatively, that's the term of an athlete. An athlete competes.
Absolutely.
Whether it's singular, one-on-one, or if it's involved in a team.
Right. When Pete Carroll was at SC, we were fortunate enough to have, at one point we had 9 athletes. Matt Leinart was obviously probably the big one, but we had a bunch of other athletes on the team that were scholarshiped, and so it was pretty cool when they would play in the bowl game that we'd go down there and they'd know who I was because they came and recruited. And so I got to, when they were in a bowl game like the Rose Bowl and when they played for the championship, I was able to go to their practices and see it firsthand, and that was really cool to see that. But Pete Carroll was the one that I really kind of looked at that, and his thing was he was big on competition. And so he pinned one versus ones all the time, and the kid who beat the other kid, he was the starter. And, we kind of carried that over. I mean, Modern Day already had that, and we had some quality athletes, but it was pretty cool. And then I kind of spun that, and he's been pretty successful. Early on in his career, he wasn't. When he went to the NFL, he lost and got fired and everything else. And then all of a sudden, he finds himself at SC, and the stars align, and he gets some good athletes and he gets some good coaches, and it was fun.
Won some games,
just a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's for people that don't know, Modern Day being a premier high school in Southern California, not just for sports, but also academically. It's a great school.
It is.
But even as amazing and as supported as that program is, isn't it really cool to walk away from that for a day and go and look at an SC?
Absolutely.
Just it's quantum jumps. Of difference.
One of the cool things being at Modern Day, and I was there from 96 to 07. I know they're having some issues right now and those types of things, but I can only speak to when I was there. It was pretty cool because we would, I was the assistant head football coach, and we would visit a college in the off season. So, around Easter break, early April, we'd take a week and we'd go somewhere. And so over the period of 12 years, we went to Nebraska, we went to Oklahoma, went to BYU, we went to Boise State 3 times. We went to Notre Dame, we went to Florida. We went to San Diego State, we went to Cal a couple times, and obviously we went to SC and UCLA because we were close in our backyard. But, we were able to go different places. That we were at Purdue when Drew Brees was there. So, it was really cool to see because it's their spring training is full go pads, and we would assimilate into the programs. So we'd get there on a Monday morning at 5 a.m., meet the secretary at 5:30, get in there, look at some film. Coaches come in at 7, 8 o'clock, and then they'd say, hey, what we got going for the day. We got team meetings at 10. We're on the field at 11. You guys are welcome to do anything you want. And every place we went, it was really awesome to assimilate into their programs. And we're learning from them. So, and they wanted our athletes too. So that helped us. Michigan we went to was really cool too, especially when we had Leinart. Everybody was trying to recruit Leinart. So it was pretty cool. Like Michigan's like Ed, Brady Hoke, who ends up being the Michigan head coach later on, and San Diego State head coach and stuff like that. So he's like, hey, you guys come out and spend some time with us in the spring. We'd love to have you. And they treat us like gold. But it was really cool because we got to see how they do it at a higher level. And even when we went to BYU, they were having a combine pro day for the pros. And so I got to talk to some pro coaches. So that was even awesome. More awesome. And it's pretty impressive.
Because you talk about the jump from high school into that college level. Well, the same jump is going from college level into the pro ranks.
Right. And it's way different. It's different, but it's the same. The game doesn't change. The training, the thought process, certain plays you don't run. Like, people are now running some, run pass option stuff, but you don't want your, multi-million-dollar quarterback getting planted in the ground and stuff like that. So, like when we went to Nebraska, they were running pure option. They're not going to run pure option in the NFL. Now they'll do it, occasionally, but as soon as that, the quarterback has the ball, he's getting rid of it because they don't want to get hit.
Exactly.
And now they're trying to protect the quarterbacks. So it's changed a lot, but it was really cool to see because, again, you talk about competition. we were pretty successful when I was at Mater Dei and won a national championship and a couple CIF championships, state championship stuff. But and now they're back on top, and I'm good friends with everybody because when I was at Mater Dei, now Bosco's gotten back into the game. Jason Nickwood does a really good job over there, and Mater Dei in the last 2 years, I think they've been national champs, and Bruce does an amazing job. It's an amazing program, and people want to play there. People go there to play at an elite level. And it's fun. It was fun to coach there. Yeah. It was a lot of work. It was a 12-month program, and I planned on staying there 5 years when I first took the job. I was really fortunate to get the job. And I told Lori, I said, I'm not going to be gone all the time, but I was. And, after the first year, I'm like, look, this is about a 5-year ride, we'll see. And 12 years later, I'm still there.
Still there.
So, and my family, my daughter Brooke and Lori, my wife, who passed away from breast cancer, and she was amazing. She was a great coach's wife, great lady, great person.
Absolutely, amazingly supportive.
Yeah, I went and I got paid to play, so to speak. When you're doing that, a lot of pressure, but I loved it, and I was addicted to football.
Well, that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is you can be a coach. And you're never going to be a coach for the money. Well, unless you are, high end in college or you're pro coach, and then the numbers are definitely significant. Right. But at the high school level, you're doing it for the love. You're doing it for either the love of the game, for me, it was always the challenge of being a mentor. A motivator, taking young kids and, changing their mindset a little bit,
right.
And honestly, one of the biggest rewards for me was not in the weight room. It wasn't even outside doing the drills. It was walking through Stater Brothers and hearing, "Hey, Coach Mike." Yeah. And you turn around and you see some kid that you coached 2 or 3 years ago, and, you made that impression.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I started coaching was I had a lot of influential adults in my life. I had an amazing father, but, I wanted to play football. And from an early age, I was fortunate enough to be put in front of some really good coaches. And Mary Nansich, who passed away a couple of years back, but Hall of Fame type coach, winningest coach in California till recently, till I think De La Salle or one of the other coaches passed him. But he hired some great assistants and those types of things, and they left a huge impression on me of who I am and who I aspired to be. Right. And in any sport, it's all about your coach. I always said this: you try to get the good players to play great and the great players to play outstanding and the outstanding players to play NFL. Yeah. That's kind of, so with that being said, you always aspire to be better. Yeah. And competition, and life's about competition. And, I've been part of athletics my whole life. Not a great athlete myself, but
it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because I'm the same way. I was always the last to be chosen, and I was never really, in high school. People don't believe it now. Well, now that I've gotten older, I'm not as big or as strong as I was. But there was a period of time when everybody thought, well, you were born 230 pounds and 6'2" and can in bench press and squat. And no, when I was in high school, I was like 6'2" and 150 pounds and couldn't run to get out of my own way. Yeah. That was it. So one of the keys for me in coaching, in strength training, was to treat everybody equal. Because I remember back in the day, in early 70s when I was in high school, the coaches weren't the nicest people in the world. No, they weren't about mentoring. They weren't about it was the coach that the head coach that we had was an ex-Marine, and so he treated everybody as a recruit. Correct, unless you were a star. Right. And then you got preferential treatment. Yeah. But, and I always wanted to change that. I wanted kids to enjoy their experience because I read a book years ago from James Michener on Sports in America, and how few people, the numbers are freaking crazy, stupid, how few people actually get scholarships.
Oh, absolutely.
Or how many of those that got scholarships that were the best thing ever got even an opportunity to try out for a pro team. And whether it's baseball, basketball, it doesn't matter. It's rarefied air. So my thing was always treating everybody equal. Even the guy that couldn't run to get out of his own way.
It's pretty cool that you say that because it connects kind of my thoughts. I love being the strength coach every place I've been at because I can create a family environment in the off season. Because even though the average program isn't thinking about a championship 12 months earlier, when you get done, and we were fortunate enough to play in a lot of championships when I was at Mater Dei, but we would take exactly 1 to 2 weeks off. We'd play two-hand touch football, and the kids would have a draft, and we'd bring the freshmen and sophomore, and the juniors would draft them, and I did rankings every week, and I did all kinds of stuff, and for 2 weeks we had a pretty heated two-hand touch game going on in the seventh period, and a lot of people would come through, even the college coaches, and they're like, "Why do you guys do this?" And first of all, their bodies need to be not in the weight room right now because we just got done playing and they're banged up.
Yeah.
And then the kids that were followers last year need to become leaders, and I get to guide them. So I would have talks with them about what a leader does and how a leader leads. And it's not always about being the loudmouth or, people lead by example, people lead by doing, people lead by showing, people do a variety of things. And there are 5 different ways to lead. And, the worst one, their level 1 is because of my title, you're going to follow and say what I do. And that person goes, I don't want to follow you,
Right.
So you want them to lead with you. And I always say people don't work for me. I work for them, from the top down, not the bottom up type concept,
Right.
And it's important. But getting back to the concept of building that team camaraderie and leadership, and all of a sudden a kid that was a follower last year that was kind of a goofball is now all of a sudden put in a lead role and has an opportunity to be a leader. And sometimes they flourish and sometimes they flounder. And,
Right.
I'm able to talk to them when they yell at another player. And afterwards I'll say, hey, Johnny, stay afterwards. And, hey, when you got on so-and-so for not lining up correctly, how many times did you not line up correctly last year? And how
Right.
did your coach got on you pretty? How'd you feel? So you need to follow up with him tomorrow and say, hey, I just want more out of you, and you can do better. I see more, So
Yeah.
It was great. And then the same thing in the weight room, because after we did that, now I kind of got them thinking, because they didn't know who the freshman names were, the JVs or the juniors to the freshmen. And, the sophomores kind of know both above and below. And so everybody got to know everybody, and we did some stuff like that. And with the PVC standing on a blacktop, with 165 kids, and on the front is all seniors, and they would show, sit and wiggle, and, teaching them how to power clean and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden I'd say, okay, seniors, put your PVC down, and, coach each lineup as I'm going and coaching too. Now I had 12 kids that were able to coach their lines, and generally it empowered them. And, we visited one year Concord de La Salle, who had the win streak, Lattiser, who had the win streak of 178 games or something like that. And I lost 4 to him as an offensive and assistant head coach at Mater Dei. But we visited him, and how he built camaraderie and team unity and stuff was very interesting. Mm-hmm. They dedicated a lot, and they never talked about the streak. It was always about one game at a time.
Right.
And even though the kids didn't want to lose because they didn't want to be the team known for having lost the streak,
that game,
yeah. But and they had some battles, and that was pretty interesting to go there and see what they're looking at and how they look at us and how we looked at them. And he only agreed to talk to us after we decided. I called him to renew our contract because we played him 4 years and they beat us. 2 years were very close down here. We didn't travel well up there to play them, and they blew us out the second year. The first year we lost by a field goal to them, and then they blew us out the next year. Then they came back down here, and we lost by 7 points and on a fluke play. But then we go up, and then they beat us again. So we lose 4 times, and I call him up and said, okay, we want to renew the contract. And he says, Ed, there's no reason for us to renew. We beat you 4 times. It can only go worse for me or for us. Mm-hmm. And he was being honest. And he says, we beat you 4 times. We don't need to prove anything. I go, you're right.
Yeah.
And so my head coach, Bruce Rawlinson, said, hey, call him back and say, hey, can we come up and visit you? And I got to look at his weight room and talk to his strength coach, who's now the strength coach at Cal and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I learned from them, and they're big on senior leadership and stuff. So anyway,
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that leadership is, first of all, it's a quality that's learned. It is, you can debate whether or not it's, in your DNA, but you may have certain capabilities, but unless you know how to tap into those and become that leader, you're not going to lead.
right.
So
It's about communication, but you're right. Like there's an old saying, you can teach a dog to bite, but if he doesn't want to bite to begin with, he's not going to be a biting dog.
Right.
Same thing, and a lot of people say, as far as hitting is concerned in football, if you're not a natural hitter, well, I was not a natural hitter. I didn't run into anybody full speed and expect them to get knocked down when I first started playing. But after I learned how to hit, my coach said, you got it in you, and then, having a little bit of leverage and some strength, you were able to hit people.
Right.
You learned. So I think you can learn to be a leader. I think we all aspire to be a different leader, but you have to be a leader within your own personality. And sometimes people lead.
Yeah.
I want to be Vince Lombardi, but you're not Vince Lombardi. I want to be the screamer or yeller, or I want to be the silent, guy.
No, what I try to when I'm talking just to people about leadership or about skills is you're only going to be as good as you can be. You're going to be the best Mike Nunley, for example. Wherever that's going to take you, if you're really striving and pushing yourself and learning the techniques or learning the how to communicate, whatever that it is that you need to work on to make yourself a better leader, you're still only going to be as good as Mike Nunley can be.
Right.
And that's it. So to your point, I want to be Vince Lombardi. Well, as far as I know, there's only been one Vince Lombardi. And,
absolutely.
And, even Vince Lombardi's son wasn't a Vince Lombardi.
Correct.
And I think that, but I'm just impressed with your outlook towards coaching and taking young kids and showing them how to be leaders, because that's what you do as a coach. It's great that they can run a particular pattern, or they can throw the ball, or they can hold the line or whatever, but there's so much more to it that I think a lot of times coaches neglect. They don't see it in the not just in the leadership aspect, but also in the team unity. And when you're coaching team sports, that's such a huge part of it. Is put your feelings aside. You may not. It's like I tell my employees, I said, I'm not looking for you to invite him over for a barbecue. If you don't like him, that's fine. If you don't get on well with him or whatever, that's fine. He doesn't have to come over for a barbecue, but you do have to get along with him here at work.
Correct. You
do have to figure it out, and that's one of the things that I think that teamwork, that team unity is really all about.
You have to respect each other. I mean, I use that term a lot when I'm talking to people at work. And like you're saying, you don't have to be their best friends. They don't have to come over in the weekend.
No.
But you also, when somebody says hi, you should say hi back.
Correct.
I mean, everybody's different. Sometimes people get upset at somebody else because they don't treat me correctly, or they think they're my boss and those things. And, I'm only as good in my leadership role as the people I surround myself below me or around me and above me.
Yes.
And that's important. And that's why one of my leadership qualities is my work ethic, in my opinion, is excellent. And that has afforded me opportunities through life because, we were talking about being athletic. I was okay. Mm-hmm. I was always seemed to be a captain or a leadership role type kid because I listened, I emulated what the coach wanted, and I didn't have an ego as far as you could yell at me and I would still be okay, because at home, that's kind of what happened.
Right.
My dad's Czechoslovakian. He's 84. He's grumpy now, and he's still alive, and God bless him. Great man, but that's how his dad, was a parent to him, and that's how my dad was a parent to us. Now it'd probably be abuse, but I am who I am because my dad treated me appropriately and didn't pity me.
Yeah.
And we live in a different society, and I'm going to sound like my dad right now, which I never thought I would when I was growing up. But you're only as good as you want to be and how hard you want to work.
Right.
So many young people, they don't really want to work, but they want to be successful today. They don't want to work for 10, 12, 15 years and all of a sudden you become successful. they want it today, and that's not how very rarely do you achieve great success overnight. It's generally a period of time.
Yeah. And even more important in that philosophy, in that view, is because they want it today, because they don't want to put the work out, the effort out, they don't want to go through the challenges to get to wherever it is they want. They just want it here, give it to me.
Right.
The problem with that they don't understand is they'll never value what they have because there wasn't the work.
Correct.
They didn't learn the work ethic. They didn't learn how to put out the effort. They just got it. Well, how are you going to appreciate it?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know about you, but the first house I ever bought, I thought this was the most amazing thing in the whole world, and it was because I was going to work every day.
Yeah.
I put the money aside. I qualified. I got it, and I moved in. That was the greatest moment ever because I achieved something.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that sports does for young people. It teaches them you're only going to get out of this what you put into it.
Absolutely. It's an excellent point. And I would always tell the kids I coach, if I give you $20, you're probably just going to go spend it on something. If you earn $20, you're going to think before you spend it.
Correct.
And, so many kids nowadays, parents, including myself, give our children what we didn't have. I didn't have growing up. I mean, my dad was a phone repairman. My mom was a secretary. And so, we never didn't have a meal. There weren't holes in our shoes, but, Ed got one pair of shoes for the year, and by, month 12, those shoes were pretty worn out.
Yeah.
And my toe might be sticking out of a space or something, and my mom would yell at my dad, and they'd get into an argument, and then my dad would say, go buy new ones. And, but that's just what we did. And I saw how hard at one point, my dad worked 63 days in a row for Pacific Bell, which is now, it was AT&T, now I think it's Verizon. But, I learned from my dad, and when my dad got home, he was tired, grumpy, and just wanted to go to bed.
Yeah.
He didn't want to throw the football,
No.
And it's like people talk about, like I was active with my daughter as much as I could. She played softball, and when I was home, which in the off season was a lot, during season everybody knew, and they, participated in, game night with dad, wherever that was in the county and stuff like that. And but my daughter is who she is because of her mom and myself, and it takes a village, all the friends and Gina and your wife. I mean, my daughter is who she is because of the people that helped raise her. It doesn't. People don't just raise a child by themselves anymore. It takes a village, and it's pretty impressed.
Yeah, and I think that part of it, because you said something, and talking about your dad, I can remember my dad when I told him I wanted to play Pop Warner. And I'll never, ever forget his words. You go do whatever you want to do. Just don't expect me to come to the games. I'm too busy. Okay, Dad. I mean, I didn't run to my room and cry because my dad isn't going to come to the games. Yeah. I was excited because he said, yeah, you can play Pop Warner. And, the holes in the shoes, we went through the same thing. I grew up with, there were 5 kids in the family, and mom didn't work, stay at home because that's the way that it was. Dad worked his butt off, and, you got a pair of shoes. And, but the difference was all my friends were in the same boat. It wasn't as though I was the poor kid on the block with a hole in my shoes.
Yeah.
Everybody had a hole in their shoe,
right?
Basically. So it made it a lot easier. We didn't have, it'd be really hard to grow up in today's world where you're comparing yourself to TikTok or or Instagram or whatever, the kids were, because that's your measuring stick.
I mean, and, I think about that. I was pretty lucky though, like as far as a stable family, like my mom and dad were married my mom passed away in 2019, and they were married at that point for 54 years. Mm-hmm. They argued. I mean, they argued a lot. Yeah. There was no divorce in either of them. They didn't quit. And that said something to me. And at times I thought maybe I didn't want to get married after all the arguments that they'd have. And I became the mediator at a young age. And, God bless them. And my mom's from Cuba. And, so it was challenging. But we always had a roof over our head. My
Yeah.
dad always put dinner on the table,
Right.
and my dad was always there when he was needed. There was no duck in him, and I remember telling him, "Hey, I'm going to go play tackle football," and he said, "Son, I'm just telling you, you're a little overweight white kid. You're probably not going to play, just so you're aware." and I hate to use that term now because
Yeah.
you don't say
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
I remember looking at him, and then I'm starter and as a freshman and all this, and I said, "I'm going to go out for basketball," and then he goes, "Okay, just so you're aware, you're not going to play on the basketball team. Just telling you, son. I just don't want you to be disappointed when you're sitting on the bench." And I'm like, "Dad, it's just part of being a team, and you learn." And I ended up being a starter. I was kind of a Kurt Rambis, couldn't score,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I could defend everybody, and it was interesting. It was fun, but I learned at an early age that was my home away from home, and creating that team to where you had somewhere to go.
Right.
I guess that was my video game, if you will. Now
Back in the day, yeah.
kids can play video games, or now there's clubs and stuff, and there's video sports. I mean, we have a video sports team that actually competes against other kids.
Oh, yeah.
That are doing video. It's pretty impressive, and
Yeah.
it's shocking. I mean, there's people make millions of dollars playing video games, and
It's-
people watching TV, watching two guys go against each other for $1 million on there.
I got a quick story on that one because I'm an avid motorsports, and especially motorcycle road bike racing, and I love watching it. And I participated. I raced for a number of years myself, and so I'm watching TV, and I'm watching this road bike race, and I'm watching these guys lay down the bike and get the back tire moved out coming through a corner, and I'm thinking, man, I've never seen that before. And I'm literally sitting watching it until it dawned on me it was a video game that they were competing against each other for, I don't know, $1 million, whatever that was. That's how real it looked.
Yeah.
I was like blown away.
Graphics are amazing.
Oh, just unbelievable.
I mean, I will be honest, I have played PlayStation 4. I haven't played the PlayStation 5, but I used to play against my nephews, Spencer and those guys, play Madden or something like that, until they got a little older and got better at it than I did. Then they'd beat me and they'd laugh because I'm this big coach, supposedly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, my thumbs don't work like they used to, but I can outplan you, but I can't connect because I can't push it.
Can't do it all.
Yeah, but the graphics are amazing. I mean,
Just
you can
crazy.
some of the cartoons are unbelievable.
I mean, I grew up in the era of a video game was Pac-Man. When you sat there and there's a great big screen and a table that you'd sit down waiting to go into a restaurant, and that little thing would go. I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
And where it's at today just simply just blows me away.
I know Galaga was big. A bunch of Pac-Man was the number one because it
Yeah.
sit down and you could actually play against somebody or
Yeah, crazy stuff. But it's interesting. Again, going back into the sports and not just boy sports, not just the boys. I mean, it's the girls and where it's at today. Because you mentioned when you were going to high school and you played football and then you played basketball, and everybody multi-sport was what we did. You played baseball, you ran track, you did multiple things. You didn't do what they're doing today, and everything is, man, just singular sport. I mean, the Twins played volleyball for a couple of years up until COVID, and they played at school. They were on club teams, and it was year round. And I'm not a big fan. I think that teenage years, you need to do more than one solid sport.
You hit on a good point. I think the part, in my professional opinion, is the part that's difficult is parents want their kid to be the best at whatever they're doing, and they can't do that generally unless they're an elite athlete. Like a Matt Liner. Matt played basketball, football, and at modern day it was very difficult. So he ended up playing all football. Mm-hmm. But a lot today, parents say they're helicopter parents and they play multiple sports when they're 4, 5, 6, 7. And then when they get to high school, okay, you're going to be a baseball player, or you're going to be a football player, or you're going to do this. I agree with you. If they play, Sanchez played at Mission Viejo High School and played in the NFL for years and was at SC. And he played multiple sports. He played 3 sports at Mission and successful in all. And it's pretty impressive. I always told Brooke, you should play as many sports as you can, because every coach brings a different, something different to the table. Be experienced to that. And where we're at today in our society is, parents are getting individual coaches, individual strength coaches. I'm at Modern Day High School, and I've got a kid coming up to me who hasn't even started for us saying, "Coach, I can't do bench press today because I'm meeting with my trainer afterwards, and we're going to do bench press." And I'm like,
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, tell me about this. Who's the coach? Don't even know who he is. Never heard of him. And then I'm going to say, well, okay, here's my card. Tell your coach, give me a call so we can be on the same page, because when I'm going to do bench, he can't do bench.
Right.
And I don't want you doing bench here and then tomorrow doing bench again. And then I'm thinking you haven't done bench on a 4-day split and you're going to do it again the next day. And then all of a sudden we got a problem. And it worked out. But a lot of parents think that if you're not paying an elite amount of money. And I've trained, when I was at Water Day, I worked for Kevin McNair on the side. Kevin was he was the head track coach at Stanford and then came down. His son, Mike McNair, played for us at Mater Dei, and Mike went on a scholarship at Notre Dame. But Kevin, he was a former lawyer and knew of sports agents, and what they did was, let's say you're coming out of SC and you need an agent, you get an agent, and the agent would contact him and say, we got to train for the combine. Currently I think he's going to be a 3rd round pick and I want to move him into the 2nd round. And here's some of the things we need to do. We need to improve his 40 time, his vertical strength, his bench press for 225 needs to be at 30, and he's currently at 24. And so Kevin came to me and said, "Hey, will you work for me?" So I worked for him on the side. It was pretty cool because a lot of quality athletes now, I'm coaching high school, and then all of a sudden I'm coaching guys that are going to be in the NFL next year, and a couple are still playing from when I actually trained them, which is kind of interesting. But you sign disclosures, can't talk their names and stuff like that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful that you don't hurt them, because
that'd be the biggest fear.
That was my fear. And here I'm lifting a potential 1st, 2nd round, 3rd round, 5th round kid, and I get him 2 hours a week, twice a week, and I'm supposed to change his this to that, and I'm doing all these numbers, and I've got in the ear, don't hurt him, and and all of a sudden his wrist starts to hurt, and he's a quarterback, don't lift this or don't do that, and it was interesting, and but I learned a lot, and it was fun. It was fun for me to do that. I'm a very blessed man. I told my daughter, whenever it's my time to move up to the next level with God, don't cry for me, Argentina concept. I've lived an amazing life. I got 13 rings at home. I've experienced most things that coaches only dreamed of. The relationships that I have with high quality people, not just NFL players, but good people. A kid that never saw the field for me, owns a Fortune 500 company, and 12 years ago called me up and thanked me on the phone when he became the vice president of that company and said, "Coach, you have no idea." And this was a kid that got on the field early, never saw the field during the game, but I coached hard. He played hard. Thin kid, just worked hard, just a great kid. And I remember talking about him at the banquet that he's going to be successful someday. And it's not about being successful on the field as much as it was about being successful in life.
Right.
I'm on Instagram, and one of my former kids who was a tight end, who's 3rd string tight end, and going into his senior year, we didn't have we were running option. We needed what's called a quick tackle, a guy that was very athletic and could get to a backer and run. And I looked at him, his name's Aaron Rapoli, and Aaron, I went and talked to him, and I'm like, "Aaron, you're the 3rd string tight end. I think you can be my starting tackle." And he looked at me, he goes, "Coach, I don't want to be a tackle." And I'm like, give me some time. And, he goes, Coach, I'm 217. I go, if I can get you to 230, you can be a tackle for me. And trust me, leverage, and I'll make you better for the second level. Long story short, that young man started at tackle for us. We went to the final. We lost in the final. He then goes to JC, and 2 years later from the JC goes on to a 4-year university, plays in a bowl game, gets a ring, and calls me and thanking me. Now he's a fireman. And there's an example of, and we reconnected on Instagram. He goes, "Is this Coach Begany?" It's one of those things. And I'm like, "Yeah, this is Coach Begany. Coach, what are you doing? Where you been?" Because I'm not really a social media guy. I've learned in the last couple of years, I'm trying to expand my horizons a little bit. My daughter laughs. But just there's an example of a kid who believed in himself but needed an opportunity. And he was an amazing kid. And his parents were so supportive of me. And they sat right behind him during the games. They sat right behind my wife. And all they did was talk about how great I was. And it wasn't me. It was the kid. But I was fortunate enough that God put me in a position to be instrumental in his life. And he is an outstanding human being and young man, has children.
Yeah.
And
well, exactly. And that's what we're, I think, both agreeing on, is that, it is about the kid. The kid put out the effort. The kid believed in you. But it's the coach that believed in him.
yeah.
And that's the part about coaching that I love to see. And it doesn't happen a lot. It doesn't happen all the time. You don't have a lot of coaches out there that are believing in the kids and talking to the kids and motivating the kids. I got a friend of mine, Justin Utupa, who was the coach for Milliken High. Now he's the head coach over at Lakewood. He's coming in tomorrow for a podcast.
That's cool.
Yeah, and Coach is one of those guys that he connects with the players.
Yeah.
The players resonate with what he's got to say, and he has taken a couple programs and pushed them to the next level, not because he is a better coach than a lot of other guys that are out there, but he's a better motivator. He's a guy that will push the kids. He's a guy that will lead you by example.
Success doesn't happen on accident.
No.
I know a lot of coaches over a period of years. I know some coaches have won one CIF championship over a 35-year period. And, maybe they had the right kids and the right talent and the right assistants, and he was on his game or she was on her game or whatever, and the administration was supportive, the parents were supportive, and there was talent there, and then you win. But to sustain like the Modern Days or the St. John Bosco's, or I know Milliken's been a lot better in the last couple of years to kind of get back to, where they used to be a long time ago.
Right.
Everybody wants to win now. And although I think that should be one of the goals, in my opinion, it's not the goal.
No.
And I always, I coach coaches. I'm in charge of athletics at Huntington Beach High School. And one of the things we've got a basketball coach, and he's a young guy, and he's doing a great job. And he's struggling because he wants to win so fast. And I keep telling him, let's build this to last.
Yeah.
Let's not build it so it falls on its face in a couple of years. And I'm supportive of him, trying to mentor him,
Right.
trying to talk him through what's going on and how to do things. And, you got to get players, but you got to do it the right way. Don't go out and illegally recruit a kid, or, you don't want that kid that's going to come to you for 1 year and transfer out the next year. You want homegrown kids. You want kids that believe in the program. And, we got them a locker room this year, and he painted it, and there's some things that are going on, a lot of good things going on. And I keep telling him, he's all nervous. We're not doing as well as he'd hoped this year, but I'm optimistic for him. And I keep telling him, I go, look, I'm not evaluating you on wins and losses. I evaluate you on the growth of the program. And that doesn't include wins and losses. Wins and losses, in my opinion, come when you do the right things. When I was at Modern Day, we didn't worry about winning. We coached hard. We worked hard. We put our kids in position. We did have good athletes. I'm not going to sit here and say we didn't. But there were years where we didn't have a DB. When we lost to De La Salle one year, our two DBs, they ran 4.9s. They didn't run 4.7s or 4.5s or and that's the year they decided to throw the ball because they had a kid who ended up going to Michigan. And the year before they'd run all option stuff. So we had practiced option stuff. And, now they're going 4 wide and nobody knew it. And they unleashed it on us. And we were lucky enough to, it was ugly. It was not one of my better careers, games. But the point of the story is you get those kids and like a Bruce Rawlinson or Marion Ansich or, you name anybody that's been a quality coach for many, many, many years. I'm not talking about a coach that's been a coach for 5 years or 10 years. Tell me a coach who's been a championship type coach for 25 years. I don't know how that guy does it. And
no, especially because when you look at sports in schools, it's fluid. I mean, man, you got the greatest team this year and they all graduated. Now what do you got? Now you're working. It's the program that you develop around the students, because remember, that's what they are. They're students,
right?
First and foremost, they're not athletes. They're athletes. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying they're students first, and they're going to move up, and they're going to move out, and they're going to graduate, and you got a whole new. So you're constantly, if you don't have a good program that you can transfer to new students coming in, you're doomed.
I was at Mission Vale High School for 4 years, 2010, 2014, and I had the honor to play with a man, Bob Johnson was the head football coach there and had coached for decades, and 2 of his sons played in the NFL. One played for multiple years, played 12 years, also won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay back years ago. But point to my story, in the off season, he would call me up at 5:30 in the morning as I'm driving in from Long Beach to Mission, and the conversation would go something like this. He didn't even, half the time he wouldn't even listen. He'd think my phone had just picked up because I'm still sleeping or something. He goes, "Ed, this is Bob Johnson. You're probably not even up yet. Hey, when you get in, I need to talk to you. We need to talk about some things. I got a couple ideas." I'm like, Bob. He goes, "Ed, oh, I didn't know you were up." I go, "Bob, I'm driving in." He goes, "Okay, what time do you think you'll be here?" I go, "I'll be there about 6:45. I'll meet you in your office." Perfect. And he had a tablet and he had things he wanted me to talk about. And this is in January, and we're not playing until September of the following year. Mm-hmm. And yet he's talking about, "Hey, I'd like to put some money in the weight room. And, hey, what do you think about this? And I got a parent who wants to donate that." And, and I'm thinking every day, his goal was to get better. Every single day.
Right.
Not sometimes, all the time. And it was awesome to see, and I was the assistant head coach working under Bruce Rawlinson, and Rawlinson was the same way. Every day I'm getting better. And that's an innate thing in somebody. Not everybody has that. It's hard to be that person.
Right.
To get up, and some people are afraid of success, and I learned that, and I never thought
isn't
that was the case.
Isn't that a strange concept? But you're absolutely right.
I mean, over the years, we'd have all of a sudden your star running back gets hurt, but then the number 2 kid gets in there and he rushes for 180 yards against somebody pretty good, and you're going, "Oh, wow, we didn't know this kid was that good." Mm-hmm. But now all of a sudden, the following week, he's rushes for 150, and then the following week, all of a sudden, he says he's hurt, but he's not hurt. We're like, "What's going on?" Well, he's dealing with success, and everybody's telling him how good he is, and he doesn't know how to handle that success. Or his dad's telling him, "Hey, you only had 110 yards last week against Loyola, and what's going on? Those coaches don't believe in you." And you're like, all of a sudden the kid's coming in, "My dad says I need to touch the ball more." And you're like, "Well, slow down. I mean, we're going to probably pass more this week because they're going to load the box," or whatever the case is. And, it's just kind of interesting, the pressure that society puts on kids now, where,
oh my God,
if you, and I can't tell you how many parents I've talked with about scholarships, and, "Coach, can we talk to you about Johnny getting a scholarship?" And I'm like, "Sure. Well, we'd really like him to go to SC." And I go, "Well, no offense, your son is 6'1" and 238 pounds. And he plays right guard for me. A Division I program is not going to scholarship your son as a guard." Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying he can't get a scholarship, but I'm telling you what they're looking for. And if, he's got to grow 2 or 3 inches and gain about 50 pounds for them to take a look at him at the right tackle spot.
And not slow down in the process.
Now, if you want to pick his hand up and move him to an inside linebacker, then that might be something he can get a scholarship on. But between us, he's a little slow. He can't cover. His best place at the high school level is right guard for me, and we win championships like that. I plugged in the right people at the right places. Gary McKnight's son, Brian McKnight, played for me, and God bless Brian. He was a golfer but loved football, and that was a tight 98 group where we won a championship, and we beat Poly in the finals. And my right guard is Brian McKnight, who all of 5'10" and a half and 225 pounds. He was eating 4 meals a day for 7 months just to get up to that so he could hold his own. And I had to adjust some blocking concepts and schemes. But he was the right kid. He was the glue to that front.
Right.
They were all friends. And I realized that he played basketball, but he was not a basketball player, obviously, but his dad. And so he's like third string, and he's playing over here in the off season at Los Alamitos High School on a July night. And my guys said to me, "Coach, we're going to all go see Brian play basketball. Why don't you meet us at Volcano Burger, and we'll go across the street and cheer Brian on?" I'm like, "I'm in," because I cared about my kids. And we go across. I get a Volcano Burger, and the kids are eating onion rings and heart attack waiting to happen. But we walk across the street, and they were so loud, and this game did not matter, but it mattered to them because their friend was playing. Yep. And at that moment, I realized how tight that group was. And they were ribbing him, but they cared about him.
Right.
And after the game, he came over, hugged all of us, including myself. And he goes, guys, I really appreciate you coming. And it was, I don't even remember the score of the game, but that was irrelevant.
Right.
The fact that, because most of them were playing the club ball and they were playing back east and stuff like that. So he actually got to play. And to see that camaraderie between them, that group was tight knit. And when my wife's mother dies, I get a call from my right guard, my left guard actually, Dane Meza, who's now in Arizona, and he calls me and says, this is the off season. This is their junior year. He calls me and says, "Coach, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine, Dane. I'll be okay." He goes, "Is there anything we can help with?" And I said, "No, we're cleaning out her house in a couple weeks to maybe put the house on the market, but maybe then or something." Unbeknownst to me, he figures it out, contacts my wife. He shows up with the whole group. 20 kids show up on a Saturday morning to take stuff out of the house. And it brought me to tears because they cared about me.
Right.
And that proved to me that this is much bigger than a sport, And I knew that prior, but it showed me that they cared, and I cared about them. And Lenny Vandermeed was in that group, and Lenny played 4 years at SC, and then played. He was not drafted, but he signed a free agent with Baltimore Ravens, and then played for the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger's last Super Bowl. He was on that team, and he's good friends with Troy Polamalu and all. Not the name drop, but just to give you an idea of who he is. And he was up until this a couple weeks ago. He'd been a coach at SC for some years. And now with the new coach coming in, they bring their own guys and stuff. But again, point to my story, he was on that line, and probably he was All-American. He was a touted kid, but 6'2" and 255 as a senior, and SC is recruiting him, but they're telling me, "Ed, he's 6'2" and 255. We kind of like our center guards to be 6'2" and 295, and I'm like, okay, this kid has no fat on him. You get him into a training table, and he's strong as an ox. He lifts hard in the weight room. And they took a chance on him, and he ends up starting 4 years for them. But it wasn't because of me. It was because of him, who he was. I was fortunate enough, and he and I are good friends. We laugh all the time that I didn't screw him up. And he says, "Coach, you made me who I was." And, he gave me credit when he got to the NFL, and he brought Travis Claridge a couple times down, and I coached him. It was kind of fun. Right. But it's not that I was a good coach. I let him be who he was, and I was harder on him than he was on himself.
Yeah, but that's being a good coach. In my book, being a good coach is knowing your audience, knowing who you've got, how are they going to respond?
Right.
You know, that's being a good coach. And being a good coach is also looking beyond the field, is looking beyond the game. It's taking a young man who, when you had him before he went to SC, I mean, that's a tough period of time in a kid's life. That's 17, 18 years old. I mean, they've got some accomplishments on the field, for example, but they suck at dating, or they're sucking in school, or there's other things that are going on in their world that they just haven't got their arms wrapped around yet. And that's a very tough time. So when you're a coach and you reach a kid like that, man, that's good stuff.
He was a sophomore when I got hired at Mater Dei in '96, and Bruce Ronson introduced me in the weight room one day to him and said, "Here's your first protege. You know, you got to take him, put him under your wing, and make him something." And I saw right away the kid had a great motor. He ran hard. He listened. He was coachable, and he wasn't full of himself. His pride was there. He didn't like to get beat. He had that inner ability of domination, and he listened. And I really admire. I love him. If I were to have a son, I would want him to emulate something like that. And that's just who he was. And very, very honored and blessed to have been in contact and been part of his journey, and all the way to his senior year and playing in a national championship and winning and being the center for Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. So just for him to be at a high success, but yet 2 years earlier, they were losing the Las Vegas Bowl to Utah before Pete Carroll got there. And so it was kind of interesting. He goes from being on the ground to all of a sudden being at this high level. And I still remember he plays in the Rose Bowl. They win. He plays in the Rose Bowl. I meet him afterwards. It's kind of a storied, everybody's gone home and I'm waiting for him. And he comes out and he's Samoan and his hair was long in the game. And he comes out and he shaved his head. And I go, "Lenny, what happened to your hair?" He goes, "Coach, we said if we won, all of us were going to shave our heads." So I did. And I'm talking to him. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of interesting how this works. 2 or 3 guys are waiting in the wings to kind of talk to him. And he goes, "Coach, just hang tight for give me about 20 minutes. He goes, "I got to talk to these guys." I go, "You okay? Everything okay?" He goes, "Oh, yeah. I mean, they're in 3-piece suits and dressed to the hilts." And he goes, "No, they're trying to sign me so they can represent me in the NFL." So they all, 3 guys, and I'm just like, wow, what a racket. It's kind of interesting how, they're agents waiting for him, and he had a good game, and, so they're telling him, "Oh, I think you're going to go second round, first round, sixth round, whatever." And then he doesn't even get drafted. He was devastated. He calls me up because, "Coach, I don't know." He goes, "My agent's telling me that Baltimore's going to call in the morning and sign me as a free agent. We'll see." And they did. I was shocked, and it's really cool. It's pretty interesting. And then, I was at a Mater Dei Servite game a couple of months ago, and Matt Leinart was there, and we were talking about what he's doing now and where he was, and it's definitely a business, and it's something that's interesting,
right?
And people don't understand what goes on in that business and how they use athletes.
Yeah, that's the sad part. It really is. So, because it's not as warm and fuzzy as everybody wants to believe that it is.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on that grown adults would have a hard time handling.
Right. Like injury. I mean, Matt Leinart, his junior year, was injured multiple times and played through injury and he'd come and talk to us, and I could say it now, I couldn't say it then, but he'd say, "Coach, if I don't play, I lose my job. I'm never getting back."
Right.
And that's reality. So I mean, the poor kid's playing with a limp arm, and he's played through it. And they won a national championship. Everybody's going, "Oh my God, he's the greatest quarterback ever." Pure leadership qualities. Matt Leinart, amazing individual. Didn't have a storied career in the NFL, but nonetheless made it.
Let's kind of tail off into that one for a second, because That's like I said earlier, that's such rarefied air. Nobody, I don't think, unless you have been around it or seen it or has any idea of how difficult it is to get to that level. I mean, it is. You just watch the combine and see what these guys are doing. You know, seeing how fast some guy that's 6'5", 300 pounds can be.
Right.
And then doesn't make it.
Some of those guys are as fast as high school running backs at 6'5" and 310.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize it until you start looking at these athletes. And, you know, because a guy can catch a football or throw a football or run fast or is big or, you know, those types of things, we idolize them. And that's what they bring to the table. And, you know, you have people that say, why are they giving so-and-so $32 million or why are they paying the coach $11 million a year? Because he gets to manage that guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like the NBA, you know, you know, a couple years ago, I forget the name of the athlete, they didn't play him as much, but then all of a sudden at the end, they play him a lot. The Raptors win. He was with the Clippers now or whatever, but amazing athlete. But when they play him all the games, he gets hurt and he's not as good. Then he can't finish. So now there's different concepts of stuff and how you do things. Mm-hmm. And, you know, science is amazing. I mean, somebody the other night, I was watching an NFL game. He got hurt in the first game, tore his Achilles and had surgery and came back by the first round of the football. So you're going to tell me 18 weeks, I tore my Achilles and I still can't walk healthy because I never got it repaired. Right. But, you know, he tears his Achilles, does everything the doctors tell him, does all these new science things, and he's full speed, 18 weeks later. That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But also too, it's a whole different era. It's not just the science of it. Science is one thing. But if you don't understand the science, it's not going to do you any good. Right. So the doctors are saying, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z. He's talking to a trainer who understands that language. Okay, he needs to do this, this, and this. Okay, then he takes it and he puts a program together and makes sure that he stays on. I mean, well, you know, you talk about, you know, a village. That's what we're dealing with. That is a village. That is
nutrition. I mean, you take a look at Brady, whether you like him or not. To do what he's done in the NFL and play for as many years at a high level and high quality, right? And it's because the way he works out, and he's not in there pumping weights all the time. It's what he eats and how he sleeps, hydration, and he monitors everything, and he talks about it. Yeah, you know, I've listened to podcasts, and I don't know him personally, but you know, other athletes I've known, like when Sanchez was in the NFL, we were talking one time. When he was with the Jets, they did a thing called Jets West at Mission Viejo High School. And for 1 week in the summer, he would fly out his offense, not the offensive line, but the wide receivers, couple DBs, couple linebackers, the tight end. And they would work out at Mission Viejo High School, and then they'd watch film, and then they'd go do bonding stuff at night. So they'd go to Capistrano Valley or San Diego or whatever. Monarch Beach is where he owned a house. So it was interesting to talk to him. So I started talking to him about lifting, and you know, and a lot of Division I programs now have GPS systems in their jerseys, and they monitor the heart rate of athletes. So you know how the old concept of run. You know, everybody's running, including the wide receiver that runs 2.5 miles in routes. And then, you know, the head coach lines them up and says, we're running 10 100 sprints today. And, the DB or wide receiver is going, oh, my God, I'm exhausted. Yeah. And then you run them so hard that on Friday night they have no legs. Right. So in the NFL now, they actually have software and they monitor heart rate. And if you're not in your target heart rate a certain amount of times, then you have to run. So I'm talking to Sanchez about this, and he says, kind of interesting. He goes, because now the quarterbacks have those, and he goes, between drills, we're running hard to get our heart rate up so we don't have to run at the end. He goes, and all the linemen are sitting there like slow jog to get their heart rate up. So, because they got to report and then they don't have to run as hard. Yeah. But, in high school, we don't, that was one thing at Modern Day. We were kind of ahead of the times. We did, getting back to lifting and stuff, we did kettlebells, club bells.
Right.
When people, like in 1998, people were going, what's a club bell? What's a kettlebell? Russian kettlebell, and they're interesting. If I'm sure you know about it, but for the viewers, if anybody looks them up, they're amazing. And they were created for when you couldn't afford a barbell and you couldn't afford weights. Right. It's something that was actually created back on the farm, and they welded something on a ball, and all of a sudden they're using it, and now there's Turkish get-ups and all kinds of different things, and then we started using for functional strength club bells. Because I started looking at our shoulder girdle tension and stuff like that, and elbows and wrists, and tackle football, and I was also the strength coach for our girls basketball team. Our track coach, I would meet with him. Our boys basketball team, I was the strength coach for. I'd work with one of their coaches, and I'd meet them in the weight room and tell them how. And I'm a core-based lift guy, Olympic lifting. I believe in. I think everybody should, clean and jerk, snatch, those types of things, and squat. But you got to know what you're doing.
Correct.
And everybody wants to bench. Bench isn't a great lift, but we unfortunately, kids measure each other on what you bench, and rarely, if you're pushing yourself off the ground a lot, then you got problems anyway. And but that's something that incline is better than regular bench and stuff like that. But for coaches out there, it's important to understand that. And so I looked one year and I found the club bell stuff, and so now we've got club bells in our weight room, and I'm yelling at the freshmen because they all want to touche each other, and half the time they want to tap somebody on the shoulder, and the kid turns around, walks into it, he's got a busted lip, or I'm going ballistic because safety's the number one thing.
Number one thing, isn't that the truth? Yeah.
And so
high school is just
I'm going crazy and yelling like a madman at somebody who is giving me their best, but then wants to be a 3-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just kind of interesting how that sport has evolved to doing, and hammer strength. And when I went to Nebraska, it was really cool. Every place we went to, I contacted the strength coach. And Boyd Epley was the strength coach at Nebraska at that time, and he was the concept of hammer strength, all the hammer strength stuff. And I got to spend time with him when I was there, and hard man to figure out. But once he realized, he goes, yeah, coach, you want to spend some time with me? What are you doing tomorrow at 5 a.m.? And I said, I'll be wherever you are. And he goes, okay. He goes, I'm training the wrestlers at 5 a.m. in the weight room. He goes, if you're a minute late, the door is closed and locked. You can't get in. I said, I'll be there at 4:50. Mm-hmm. And I did, and I was. And after that, he talked with me, and he spent some time with me, and I got to talk to his number one assistant and those types of things. And he's a brilliant man. Talk about strength concept, and just I couldn't write things down fast enough as he was spewing it out. I was just trying to be a sponge.
Well, and that's, I think, to me, the most interesting part about lifting today. It's not simple.
No,
it's not a simplified process any longer. You're not just going in and pumping some iron. Right. There's a scientific approach to what they're doing, and there's reasons why. You want to be faster, you want a better vertical. You want to be able to push somebody. What is it that you want? We'll put a program together for. It was never like that in the old days.
It was very generic in the old. In the old days, you bench pressed. My coach. Like a lot of people don't front squat. My coach was big in front squat even before regular squat because it aligns your spine, and it also teaches you proper, technique, which it stuck with me. And it's funny. I go back to my high school days. We didn't have a lot of money at St. Paul High School. It was kind of a poor Catholic school. Right. Not to say our parents didn't care. It's just we didn't have a lot of money in the weight room either. And I mean, we were lifting bars that were bent and had soldering on them, and somebody put a plate on there, or they'd measured out this, and it was iron that was attached by solder or welding, or right. So it was interesting. And I remember we had a 185 bar that was, you could not change the weight on it for front squats, and that was your aspiration to get to that point. So my sophomore year, I'm doing that, and I'm really proud of myself. But then, of course, your coach sees you doing that, so then he slips 2.5s on each side, and it's harder, and you're trying to
Start
get
all
12,
over again.
12 reps,
Yeah.
But he did what he was supposed to do because he got me to that point. And,
Yeah.
we've been talking about, challenging kids, and I get them to be better. My goal and I miss coaching. I don't coach now because I can't, because I hire and fire coaches, and the district I'm in, you can't be a coach and be in charge of athletics because there's a conflict of interest there.
Absolutely, I can see that.
I'm hoping, if God has the same plan as me, I'm hoping to retire in 7 or 8 years down the road and go back to coaching at whatever level God wants me to, whether it's freshman football or at the varsity level. And, I got people telling me, oh, you're going to come work with me, Jason Negro at Bosco. As soon as you're done, I got a spot for you. Chad Johnson at Mission Viejo. And these are good people. And they know me from when I was at Mater Dei because they were at St. John Bosco as assistant coaches. So,
well, that's also too. That's the reward for you and all the years you put into. Now, if you retired, now you get to pick and choose.
Yeah.
You get, and it isn't about who's the win and losses. It's about the people you get to work with.
Right. And I got a really good friend of mine, Jack Nichols, and Jack's actually retired. He was the head coach at La Habra High School for years. I coached there for 3 years with him, and he's retired now. He's coaching in different places. He was the linebacker coach at Mater Dei for years. His sons had great careers at Servite. His son played at SLO, and is my godson. And so our goal is to kind of coach together someday again. Because I told him when back in '85 when you had me, I was kind of a loose-lipped coach and didn't know much. So I apologize to him every time I see him, and he laughs. And I say I wasn't half the coach I am now, and he laughs. And I say I was more of a detriment to you than a help. And he says that's not true. So he's just a good friend. He was the best man at my wedding, but he might even become a walk-on head coach because that's common now. And
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's quite common. A lot of districts can't afford teaching spots, so there's a lot of coaches that are walk-ons that aren't teachers. And I think it's a weakness in the system because your coach isn't as vested. Some are that are walk-on coaches, but if you're a walk-on coach, you're not there during the day, which means that if Johnny's having trouble because mom got told she had breast cancer last night, you don't get to see him until 3:00 in the afternoon. And when you're a full-time coach, you're there and you're able to monitor grades and a variety, what classes are the kids taking. And if a teacher calls yours or types an email and says, hey, Ed Begany, your starting right guard is a jerk in my class. Can you please talk to him? Those things. It's harder to deal with that stuff when you're a walk-on coach.
Right.
And then the parents get to people, and that's why a lot of programs have gone to walk-on coaches. But and I'm not saying they're not successful. Like the head coach at Newport Harbor is a walk-on coach, and he just got done winning CIF in a different division. But and he does a great job. And so there are people that can do that. But as an administrator, if I'd like to hire head coaches that are teachers because I believe that they're vested more. And it completes the program. Now, if that's not an option for a school, then the best thing is a walk-on coach. But
is it truly that they're vested in the school, or is it that it's required that they're there more time?
I think I grew up in an era where coaches were teachers all the time.
Right.
My coach is a teacher. I'm able to walk out and see him if I've got an issue. I don't have to wait for him to get on campus at 2:30 or 3:00 or 3:30 now because they changed. There's a law in California starting, I think it's next year, all classes have to start after 8:30 or 8:35. So that's going to push the day, which people don't understand.
Right.
That's also going to push practice times.
Yeah.
Because now your walk-on coaches or your teaching coaches can't practice until 3:30, 3:35.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they're going to have to go from 4:00 to 7:00. So that puts the kid home late and, doing homework and studying and becomes a difficult thing. Not undoable, but difficult because they've done studies and they feel that it's important for kids to get their sleep. And I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm not so sure starting this class later gets that done.
Yeah, it just comes in the back.
They might be
backside.
they might be playing Fortnite at 2:00 in the morning instead of going to bed at 12.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But there are those, you can't control.
right.
That's one thing. But I will say that students today seem like they have a lot more homework, a lot more, responsibilities as far as the schoolwork is concerned. So then you throw in athletics on top of all of that. And, that takes a big chunk of their time. And then plus their kids, and they got social life.
Right.
And social life is going to come first and foremost. So
Yeah. A lot of kids aren't playing sports anymore because of the social aspect of it.
Right.
It's hard, it's time consuming, and a lot of them think, if I'm not the star, why should I play?
Well, not only that though. What I found is that it's probably financially difficult for a lot of families.
It can be
that
absolutely.
That want to play. I was fortunate with my girls. It was just volleyball, so you would think that a pair of shorts and, a jersey and, not too much to it. It was still $300-400 per child.
Yeah.
And I got twins, and so we're doubling that up.
Right.
It's expensive.
It is. The ACLU back in 2010 actually came out, and it's illegal to charge for playing sports. You can ask for donations, and certain, that's why like every sport in our high school has a booster club, and their main purpose is to raise funds for their sport. Some raise more than others,
Right.
And some don't raise enough, and it can be challenging. And we work with our head coaches to make sure they make good choices. And if our parents can't afford things, or if they say it's $1,000 and we take a look at our donation, how many people are donating,
Right.
then all of a sudden only 50% are donating, then it's too much, so it's difficult. And I think the concept is good. However, without funds, if you don't have money, the program and the experience isn't as quality as it could be.
Right.
Like maybe they can't play in a tournament, or their uniforms aren't the same style or the up to speed style as somebody else they're playing, or they don't get the warm ups or this or that, or a backpack, or those types of things. And it makes a difference. I mean, I remember the first time I got my shirt to wear at St. Paul that had a football on it. I was wearing that as proud as I could. And it's difficult, and it's hard because I think every kid should play a sport or be part of a group, and you and I were talking off the air a little bit earlier about theater and those types of things. That's important too.
Right.
They should be part of something bigger than themselves. That's the only thing I'm a firm believer in. Regardless, you don't have to play sports. I'm not saying sports is the end all. Right. I am saying it was a difference maker for me. And I believe it taught my daughter a lot too. Taught her how to deal with, we talked a little bit about dealing with success. Dealing with failure and dealing with success should be almost the same, even though people don't understand that.
Right.
Every time I won a championship, I had to take a deep breath because I remembered the years that I've lost games and didn't make the playoffs. Yeah. So it's not.
Well, there's something about success. There's something about being, at the top of your game, whether it's the coach or whether it's the player. There's something a little unnerving about it because you're not accustomed to it. So what most people fear when they're at the top is the fall off the other side, the failure, because you're going to fail. That's just life. And I tell people all the time on this podcast in life, I tell it to Brian, is that I've had a lot of successes in my life, but I've had a hell of a lot more failures in my life. And I've never learned anything on my successes, but I've learned a hell of a lot on the failures. Failure is a part of life. But when you find people that aren't accustomed to successes, it's almost like they will sabotage themselves because they don't want to fall off the other side.
Right. Yeah. A lot of times, like you take a look, and I tell kids this all the time, when a team wins by one point, they celebrate. when a team loses by 1 point, the coaches look from within, the players look from within. What did we do wrong?
Right.
And it's 1 point difference. That's the PAT. That's a field goal. That's a whatever. And I'm not saying it's any worse when you get beat 54-7 or 0.
Right.
But it's like you got to evaluate yourself every time you compete. And I was a big believer growing up with John Wooden. I believe I've read his books, and I got the opportunity to meet him 3 times and sat and had dinner with him, which was really cool.
Oh, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Beyond, I mean, I almost couldn't talk. Like, I was so enamored by him, and and he didn't make you feel that way, though. It wasn't like he looked at you and said, "Oh, you're just a high school coach."
Yeah.
It was the opposite. But when he would speak, it was just like, oh my God, that was the best thing anybody's ever said,
Yeah.
And
isn't it amazing when you're around people like that? And I've had the opportunity a few times to meet people at that caliber, and even when they're not talking about the X's and the O's, and they're just talking about life.
Correct.
And it's just the level of that they can speak from, that they can talk about, that that insightfulness is. It just sets you back. It's like you don't even want to open up your mouth because
right. I didn't want to be stupid.
Yeah, I didn't want to look stupid. I'm not at that level.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing.
I was at BYU, and their line coach played at Pittsburgh and played in the league for like 14 years. Their offensive line coach, and he's going over stuff, and he says, Dave Money was the offense coordinator at Mater Dei, and he and I were at BYU at the same time because we went as a staff. We took about 4 other guys. And the line coach stops and says, "Hey, I hope you guys don't mind, but there's a guy named Jim Trussell, who's a friend of mine. He's going to come and he's going to sit in our meeting and we're going to talk a little bit. Is that okay?" And we're like, "Yeah, I don't even know this guy." Well, at that time, he was the head coach at Youngstown State. And he ends up going to Ohio State and writes an amazing book. And, but he walks in and sits down, and humble man. And they start talking, and I can't write fast enough. Like, my hand's cramping because I'm just trying to be a sponge and listen to what they're talking about. And, we watch a little bit of film. He's like, "Hey, when you do that," and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're talking like a different language, And I was just enamored by him and the fact that I'm in the same room and I'm this young coach, and I'm going, well, I don't know if I can ever be at that level, but okay, it's just this one opportunity. I'm writing as fast as I can, and at the time, I didn't even know who Trussell was. And then all of a sudden, he ends up going to Ohio State, wins the national championship, and I'm like, wow, this guy knows his stuff. And regardless of how it ended at Ohio State for him, brilliant coach, and not just, again, we talked. We ended up going to lunch with him, and just talking to him outside of the game of football, he just spoke of confidence and just about life in general. And at that time, I think they won 2 or 3 Division II championships, national championships, and he was the head coach of Youngstown State. And I'm like, I gotta look this guy up, man. I don't even know that much about him, and he's legit. Yeah. And it was really cool. I've been and I keep saying this word, but I'm humbled and blessed to live the life I've lived, and the success that I've had as a coach and as a person. I'm very humbled.
Well, and I think that's where your successes stem from, is your humility, your ability to pass on your successes onto those that are around you. And that is part of being a true leader. A true leader doesn't get out and beat himself on the chest and tell everybody how good he is.
Yeah.
A great leader is somebody that recognizes the team that got him. And when I say team, it's not just the players, it's your coaches. It's, at high school level, it's the boosters, it's the moms, it's the, it's the administration. It's everybody that is there to support you. And for a real true leader to stand up and say, I'm here because, my back coach did this, my quarterback coach did this, my offensive line coach did this, and couldn't have done it without these guys. I couldn't have done it without Margaret selling shirts for us at every game. Those are in high school. There's definitely a village there that is going to help that head coach, and the successful head coaches is just like business. I don't have as much experience in the sports world and coaching outside of my daughter's softball team when she was growing up, or strength and conditioning, and but being around that. But in business, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. In business, you are not going to be a successful business person without the support of, your receptionist, with your salesman, with your whatever it is that, type of business that you're in. And if you don't recognize it, you're not a leader. So your successes as a leader stand out because of you, of Ed.
Yeah, I'm a normal guy that been fortunate enough to be in the right situation, right time, and make right choices. And
well, I've known you long enough to tell you, yeah, you're just a normal guy for sure. I mean, and that's one of the great things about Ed. Is that you've had a lot of successes, but you're still Ed.
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Not necessarily true. That is not necessarily true.
I don't know. We'll see. It's pretty cool. I go back to my experience at Mater Dei. My first year, '96. We go 14-0, and we beat Loyola in the Coliseum for the championship. And the next morning. Not next morning, Sunday. So this is Friday night, and Sunday morning I get Bruce Rollinson calls me at 4 a.m., and he's got a grovelly voice kind of like mine, and he goes, Begany. I go, what, Rollo? He goes, we're national champs. And I'm like, huh? What? And my wife's Lori's going, is everything okay? And I'm going, we're national champs? I got to go. I got to tell everybody else. Bye. And I get off the phone and I look at her and I said, I guess we're national champs. She just got done talking to USA and the paper, and it's coming out on Tuesday morning. And then I call him later on in the day on Sunday, and he goes, yeah, you should probably buy a couple copies and give them to your parents. And I said, why? And he said, I told them you were a big part of what we did this year. And I go, Coach, why'd you lie? And he goes, it wasn't a lie. And I'm like, So it was funny. And I got it in my garage up on the wall. So
isn't that a great feeling though?
It was pretty cool. You talk about, I was so excited Tuesday morning. I get up, and it's back in the old days when you're driving to work and you stop at 7-Eleven and you buy the newspaper. This is, before it's online and all that stuff.
Right.
And, I buy one because I wasn't even sure if I was in the darn thing. And it was like 75 cents. And 75 cents was a lot of money in '96. So I buy one and I go out to my car and I pull out the spread and I'm reading the article, and all of a sudden there's my name. And I'm like, he did. I thought maybe he was kidding,
Right.
And I just read it, and it was one of those aha moments. I'm like, wow, I was grateful to.
But it's recognition, and you take that recognition, and while it's great for you to get recognized for the effort and the energy and everything that you put out, but it also resonates with you when you recognize other people.
Right.
Too. I know that when I was a strength coach for a couple of years, because I was for the freshmen coming in, so it was all for the B team, the young team, and they did really good. They had a good season, and the coach kept recognizing the strength and the conditioning. That made the difference. Mike. We were out there. We were more conditioned. We were more fit, and we were stronger.
Right.
And it was just like, man, just made me feel like I was really, because I don't know about you, but when you're a strength and conditioning coach, you don't always feel like you're really a part of the team. It's kind of like you're on, an offshoot of it. You're there, you're in the weight room, it's before practice, and you get everybody ready, then they go out and then they do the thing, and then they go play the game, and they win, lose, whatever that it is, and it doesn't really come up.
Well, and you can't measure it. You can't measure your success. We try to. And I've been fortunate. Every place I've been at, I've been a position coach and a strength coach. So it's good for me to experience in the successes of winning on a Friday night or Saturday night or Thursday night.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree with you, because it's like you're working and working, and you have no idea how good or bad it's going until, like, numbers. And I learned to keep all my numbers through the years, to take a look at it and evaluate and meet with my head coach and say, I think we're a lot like the 97 team in '06, which means that we're not as strong as we have been, but we're very athletic. So I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm going to tweak it a little differently. And here's what I think we should do. And like, we had one year, I'm not going to say what year, but we had one year where I didn't think we were very tough up front. And, he said, well, what do we do? And I said, well, we go back to old school, and we go back to the stations and do the, 12, 15-second lifts, and, get the kids' heart rates up. And we've got to get them to be tougher that way, because they were not prima donnas, but they thought they were modern day, and we just have to show up. We don't have to work hard.
Yeah.
That's not true, Coach. We're good.
Yeah.
And good leadership that year, and they stepped up. And I would always tell them, I'm going to beat you with a stick. Not really, but, beat you with a stick, because I love you, because I care about you, because I want to be successful. And you're not going to be as hard on yourself as I'm going to be on you. And know that when you walk into this weight room, I love you, and when you walk out, I still love you, regardless of if you hate me. And it's funny, one of our linebackers, Mitchell, who played at Oregon for 4 years, his senior year, and what a stud he was, boy. He was actually a Butkus finalist, and so his senior year, he goes up and he's one of our MVPs, and he goes up there and he starts talking, and this was just at our high school banquet, and he says, I can say this now, Coach Begany, I hate you. And everybody, it's just like you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm being honest in that I love you as much as I can love anybody, but I will not miss your weight room at all. And so, it was like a backhanded compliment.
Absolutely.
And then, it's funny, this, 215-pound stud shows up after his freshman year and starting at Oregon, and played in the bowl and all this stuff. And he looks like a biker. He's shaved head and beard. And I'm in the weight room lifting, and he walks up and he goes, hey, is there any room in this weight room for a guy that's going to be a freshman? And I'm like, turn around, I go, Mitch, what's up? And Kevin Mitchell's his name now. He's a law enforcement in Oregon. He moved to Oregon, and he's a state patrolman over there. But a phenomenal man, person, dad, and true leader. We won a championship against Long Beach Poly, and he was our linebacker. He had a severe separation, should have stopped playing in a championship game, continued, and we threw him the go-ahead touchdown or two-point conversion with a separated shoulder, and he put his hands above his arms, above his head to catch it. And he was just a man. And, it's because of kids like that, I see his courage and how hard he worked. And he separated his shoulder in the second quarter, and he comes to the sideline, and the trainer's looking at us going, he's done. And he's going, I'm fine. I'm okay. And he's like, I can hit with the other shoulder. I'll make sure I make my tackles with the other shoulder. I'm fine. And we,
how do you wrestle with that?
You don't. And, we called parents down, and they made the decision, and he continues to play. And here we are, last 34 seconds of the game. And, we're going, well, our two-point play goes to the fullback, and it's Mitch, and he can't raise his hand. He's literally, his arm is attached to his body almost all the time now, and they know that. And, it's one of those moments like a movie where, we're talking, and he looks at it, he goes, I'll catch it. Just throw it. I'll catch it. And I remember Rollinson go, all right, you heard the man, let's go. And we go out there, and Minor throws it, and we win. And, I mean, everybody's hugging him, and he's like,
Don't.
yeah, don't hug me. I mean, and the kid's got tears coming down his eyes.
Yeah.
And but I look back and I think about that, and then he goes to Oregon, and he is 5'11" and 3/4 and 215 pounds, and makes the NFL in Miami, and then ends up getting cut like in the third week. But that's who he was at 215.
Yeah.
Just a beast. And boy, could he hit you. And I would not want to go against him. He was that. If you're in an alley, he's the guy I want behind me.
Yeah.
Or
Just think about
front.
that. Just think about what you just said, though. Just think about got cut after 3 weeks. How few number of people can say they got that far.
Absolutely.
I mean, that takes it's something I hope that anybody that's listening to this can somehow think about the difficulty, that path, that road to get to that level. And even though you get cut, God bless you, man, because very few human beings get that opportunity to go there and be a part of something that grand, that huge, that monstrous. And okay, you got cut, but okay, you got cut by the best of the best.
You got that opportunity.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I'm watching the games today, and the games last night. Anybody can beat anybody on any given day. Even a team that is 0-10 can beat a 10-0 team in the NFL because they're that good.
Yeah.
And to say, and I've had athletes that have made the NFL and then got cut, and they call you and they got their tail between their legs and they see you and they go, sorry, coach, I got cut. I'm just not good enough. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
Look at what you've done, what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
How many people can say that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very minute percentage of people that can say that they competed at that level.
Right.
Even for a day, even to be considered to compete.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Even have your name brought up in that conversation.
Correct.
Is a phenomenal achievement. And you obviously you have been around it. I've been around a few pro athletes, football players, baseball players, and it's whether they made it, didn't make it, spent 3 weeks, it's a different level that is so hard. It's almost harder for me to understand being around the guy that didn't make it and see how fucking good he really is, and he didn't make it. What does that tell you about the guys that did? I played some softball when I was younger, and I was on a couple of the travel teams, and had a guy that was playing shortstop. I was first base. Had a guy shortstop. The guy played with I think it was Red Sox in their farm team in the farm league. Made it up to the majors, I think, for 1 or 2 games, and then was sent back down. And this guy would play so deep at short because he had the range and he had the arm to do it. And he would field a ball, and then he would look at me, and he would take a couple steps, and the guy's running, and he would just wait, and then he would let go. And then they'd see this smile on his face, and he would laugh because when it hit the glove, it just hurt. I mean, the ball's coming and moving and coming at you so fast. And I used to think, and this guy didn't make it. I can't imagine what it would take to be one of those guys that had a 5-year, 6-year, 7-year career.
Yeah. Rob Johnson played in the NFL, I want to say 12 plus years. He was the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills for years, and actually holds a record he's not proud of, to be sacked the most. His body was just beat up when he left. Amazing man, amazing father, great coach. He was coaching with his dad at Mission Viejo High School when I got there in 2010. And just a great mentor to kids, 6'5". He works out every day. He's retired, but a lot of great things going on. One day in practice, I watch him, and he's working with the quarterbacks, and he sits on his knees at the 40-yard line, and he tells the kids, he goes, if you can hit the crossbar, with the football. We're done with practice. Kidding,
Right,
but serious.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this, and he throws the ball. He hits the crossbar. One try. And I look over at him, and I'm just like, wow, who has that kind of control?
Yeah.
And then, of course, our quarterbacks, it turned out to be pretty good quarterbacks. They couldn't do it. It took them, they finally hit it on like the 12th try. We did it. We're down.
Yeah.
Try,
Yeah, there's nobody left on
but
the field.
There's an example. And then when Sanchez came, he was working out with him too. Mm-hmm. And then Sanchez, they're standing up at the 45 left hash, and they're hitting the crossbar, alternating back and forth, just tapping it, from 45 yards away. And I'm looking at that going, how in the world? It would probably take me 1,000,000 balls to try to hit that.
Yeah.
By luck.
Yeah.
But there's an example of what they're capable of. And what people don't understand is that these are human beings that have a gift or a talent. And, you watch them, like I watched Stafford today and the Rams' victory over the Bucks. And, some of the windows he put that ball in were so tight. 3 inches to the left, it's picked. 3 inches to the right, it's incomplete if he doesn't put it exactly where it goes.
Right.
And watching Roethlisberger the other day and stuff like that, it's the same thing. Like, it's the sport of football is very interesting, and it could be said for anything. A couple years ago, we had a young man last name Vogel who played at Huntington Beach High School and is now with the Dodgers. The Dodgers signed him. He gets up there, and in a playoff game, he hits a home run, and we needed it. We were down by one, and there was one person on, and he hits a home run. We win the game, and he does.
Yeah.
And he gets up there, and all the parents are talking if there's a kid that could do it, Vogel, and because he hit a dozen home runs throughout the year. First pitch, he puts it downtown, and just jogs. And I'm like, kids like that, I'm enamored by. I love being part of their lives.
Right.
I look at Matt Barkley. This is a great story about Matt Barkley. So his incoming freshman year, we really didn't have a quarterback. We had a senior quarterback, great kid, but not a great quarterback. Just a leader, but not able to throw the ball really well, or he ran the ball well, but just kind of an average quarterback. But at modern day, average is okay, but not good enough. And in comes Matt Barkley as a true freshman. And our coordinator, Dave Money, told us in the summer, we're like, who's going to be our quarterback? And he says, the incoming freshman, Matt Barkley, is going to be our quarterback. And I'm like, what? What did you say? And all my linemen, well, some of them are seniors, and they want the senior to play. And, it's a little controversial.
You got some politics.
You do,
yeah.
and I had to have some talks with my line guys, but I didn't have to sell Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley sold Matt Barkley. As soon as he started to play and his leadership, amazing person, amazing. People don't understand what a great kid he is or was or man. He is very, very humble, not full of himself. And so Matt's first game, and I don't remember who we were playing, we're in the Santa Ana Bowl, great place to be, great high school football venue because there's no track around it. So when you're watching game, you're on top of the field, which is really cool, and they redid it a couple of years ago. But anyway, Matt comes up to me in pregame after warm-ups. You can see he's visibly nervous. And Matt comes up and says to me, Coach, is it okay if I do a prayer group before the game? And I said, sure, as long as I'm involved in it. Mm-hmm. And he laughed. He goes, sure, Coach. He goes, anybody can come, I told the team. So he walks out, probably about 18 guys walk out. And it happens to be all my starting offensive linemen that are in that group. And I'm like, when I noticed that, I went, oh, this is going to be interesting. So Matt, we all held hands pre-COVID, and there's probably another 5 coaches. I'm going to say there's probably 23, 24 people in a circle. And Matt just starts off with a prayer and says, Lord, just allow me to live through you, protect my teammates and the other team from any harm or injury tonight. But Lord, help us convey who you are to people, and we want to give your word to people. We want them to see you through us. And, he just says some amazing things. And I'm standing next to him thinking, this kid's a 15-year-old freshman going to play a varsity football game where everybody wants to rip his head off. And my linemen were just like, this kid's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And we went all around, everybody talked, and I ended with, thank you for this opportunity to lead these men, and may you bless them, may they play to the best of their abilities, and may the other team play to the best of their abilities, and maybe we be injury-free at the end of this and protect us all. And, in God's name we pray. Actually, Mary, the mother of God, it's kind of the thing at modern day. It's modern day Mary,
right.
mother of God.
Right.
So we figured that Mary would always favor us a little bit. Just kidding. But so we go out there. He has a great game. And after the game, all the coaches are talking. And my line is just looking at me, and they're like, this kid's for real. And I said, we just got to give him an opportunity. We got to block our butts off, and we got to do our jobs. Do your job.
Do your part.
Don't be worried because, sometimes kids go, we should be running the ball more. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. And I'm always a believer in any good organization. I didn't worry about what the play was called. I didn't worry about what the defense was doing. I worried about our offensive line. And if we didn't win, it was because I didn't do my job, not that the defense gave up 40 points. And so I think that's important. And, we talk about leadership qualities and skills. In any winning organization, if people are pointing fingers, they need to point the thumb first, that I need to be part of the solution because I am part of the problem. And people forget about that. It's so easy in today's society to blame the other person. I didn't get the ball enough. I didn't do this. I didn't run, I would have won the game if they'd have thrown me the ball more, or, I don't want to talk about anybody negatively, but, if everybody does their job, in the years that we were successful when I was there, it's because people weren't worried about who got the ball.
Isn't that the concept of team sport?
Well, that's why I always said that. Like, I'm talking to you today. I didn't want to talk negatively about anybody,
right?
Because it's not fair to them. They're not here to defend themselves, and it's my view of what happened whenever it happened. So, what I am going to say is, I think it's interesting that sometimes people point the finger, but they should be pointing the thumb because they can be part of the solution instead of the problem, and the problem probably exists because of them. And we don't realize that as human beings. Every time that I've tried to argue with somebody or say something or say it's your fault I didn't do this, what I should be doing is look in the mirror saying, I'm not successful, or I didn't do this because of myself, not because of somebody else. Right. I wasn't given an opportunity. Well, I didn't create that opportunity. Well, so maybe I didn't work hard enough, It's kind of the irony for me is the year before I got to modern day, I was seriously thinking about not coaching anymore. I was severely overweight. I was working nights at Albertsons. My wife and I were trying to get pregnant. And I'm thinking, I'm at St. Paul High School. I'm coaching 3 sports. I'm teaching algebra and biology, and I'm not making very much money. And I'm working 28 hours a week at Albertsons every weekend. I'm going from football practice to working at night, and I'm exhausted. And I almost quit. It was so close. I talked to my best friend about it, and at that time he was like, you can't quit. You can't quit on you. You can't quit on your family. And I'm like, I'm not quitting on my family, but I don't think I should be a coach anymore. Maybe I should go into something else. And the irony for me is that was almost the pinnacle of when everything started to go up. As soon as I got to modern day, I'm the same coach I was a year ago. And I didn't know this, but Bruce Rawlinson knew somebody who knew me when I was younger, and that's how he interviewed me. And when I interviewed, it was only about a 15-minute interview, which was, I thought I did poorly in the interview. And it was on a Saturday morning, and I'm driving home, and that's when you have beepers. And my beeper's going off, and it's Lori, it's just saying 411, 911, which is information, and pull over. And so I pull over by 7-Eleven, and, hello. I go, Lori, what's wrong? And she says, hey, listen to this, and pushes the play button, and it's Coach Begany, it's Bruce Rawlinson. Hey, you did a great job today. I want to talk to you about being a monarch. we'll talk on Monday. Give me a call. Actually, you know what? Call me tomorrow night at 6:00. I'll be done with the family. We'll talk about the future, and I'm excited to have you. And go Monarchs! And I'm like, hit it again, play it again. So we sat there and listened 2 more times, and she's like, "What are you going to do?" I go, "I'm taking the job, you know." And I said, as long as he can get me a teaching job, because I had a teaching job, and telling my former head football coach, who I played for, I'm leaving, was not a fun situation. But
Right.
the point to my story is, I thought about walking away. I was serious about it. Wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I was in a bad place personally. We weren't having a lot of success. I was a football coach, soccer coach, and a track coach. And I was kind of mediocre in all of them because my efforts weren't. And I was a strength coach, getting up at 5:30 in the morning, lifting with the kids, and in the afternoon lifting the kids, and then going to soccer practice and going home at 7 o'clock at night, you know, and not getting paid very much money for it. I mean, so everything was stretched, and we're not having a kid, and I had to pay for insurance. You know, everything was just, the God had a plan. God had a plan, and my spirituality increased when I just let go and let God. I really did.
Well, you know, there's so many things that can be said about that story. One of them, spiritually, yeah, when you release grip on it and let God take it, it's always going to go better. I always tell everybody, every single time I've tried to control the situation rather than release it, I fucked it up.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
Yeah. The other part of that, this goes back to what we're talking about with younger kids today and how they want immediate success. They want to walk into the management position. They don't want to start out
right. Cleaning the floors or doing the menial work, or what. They want to start out as the manager. Right.
Because, you know, unfortunately, you know, I'm going to blame parents today because parents keep telling them how good they are, how great they are, and you deserve to be the manager.
Right.
You know, well, no, you got to earn to be the manager. And that's what you did. You earned the right to go to Modern Day. You put in the hard work. You put in the effort. And so when you got there, it wasn't even getting there. Before you got there, you got that voice message that you replayed over and over because that right there was your reward. That right there was your success. That right there was all those years of getting up at 5 a.m. and doing the strength and conditioning and doing the soccer or doing the track, doing whatever, plus teaching and not making money and not doing. You stuck it out. You did it. And if there is one thing, if anybody's listening to our podcast today, if there's one thing that's going to resonate, I hope it's that effort is going to get you where you want to go. You know, I have this saying that I try to talk to young people about is nobody's going to come knocking on your door and giving you this plum job.
All right.
You got to put out effort. You got to put it out there. You've got to put the resumes out. You got to go knock on the doors. You got to create your own opportunity, because it is, if you're sitting there waiting at home, laying on the couch for the door, you know, somebody ring the doorbell or knock on the door and say, "Hey, it's never going to happen."
Right.
You know, so don't be afraid of that hard work. And that's exactly what you were talking about. You know, and that's a great story. And I hope people hear that, not just the story itself, but kind of think about what it took for you to get to where you were. And that was a turning point for you.
A big turning point. And I look back and could have easily left coaching and not be sitting here today or for a different reason.
Yeah.
You know, and I believe that God, and I prayed, boy, did I pray. You know, I'm like, because I'm Catholic, and not that it makes me better than anybody, or that's, you know.
It makes you.
It makes me me. Growing up, every Sunday we went, to church, and I went through Catholic school, all 12 years of grade school, high school, and everything else. Anyway, it's kind of where I was. I'm just like, God, I believe that you put me here. Tell me what you want me to do. Where do you want me to go? What's the next step? Yeah. Because I feel like I'm drowning. I can't swim. And it's funny that, all of a sudden I interview for the Modern Day job, and a precursor to that job in the summer before, during 2 days, their kicking coach and I coached at Whittier College together. I coached at Whittier College for 3 years. And he was the kicking coach at Mater Dei. His name was Gary Goodwin. And Gary called me the night before 2 days. So football's just going to start in August, okay? I don't remember. It was like an 8th or 9th or 12th or whatever. And phone rings. I go, Gary, what's up? And he goes, hey, Ed. He goes, okay. He goes, I can't talk long. Bruce Rollins, I just gave Bruce Rollinson, the head football coach at Mater Dei, your number. We need an offensive line coach, and we need him to start Monday. And I'm going to get off the phone because he's going to call you, and I want you. He's going to talk to you about coaching the offensive line at Mater Dei. And I'm just like, okay. And okay, I get off the phone. My wife's like, what did Gary say? Are we going to go to dinner or something? Like, no, he just said that Bruce is going to call me, and I don't even know Bruce Rollinson at that point,
Right.
And so phone rings, growly voice, hey, Ed Begany, it's Bruce Rollinson. Hey, I know you know a couple guys I know, and we need a coach. We need a line coach. Ours just left for a college gig yesterday, and I need you to start on Monday if you're available. And I sitting there, and he's telling me about the program and the kids we got coming back, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what a great opportunity this would be to go to Mater Dei. And so I'm listening to him, and then all of a sudden I can hear my own voice in the back of my head saying, be loyal. You told these kids not to transfer. You would be there for them their senior year. We're gonna stick this through. How many kids come and want to transfer, at the varsity level? And then I said, Rollo, I'm just going to be honest. I, in good conscience, can't leave the night before 2 days. I said, I wish you all the best luck. And I did say if the job is open at the end of this season, I'd be more than happy to interview for it. But timing's wrong. I just can't do that to my kids. And, he said some kind words, but he was also made it evident that this job's probably not going to be there at the end.
Yeah.
This is Mater Dei High School.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a good line coach, and it's probably not going to be open at the end. So, Ed, although I admire you for your morals and your values, I think you just made a mistake. I think he was just trying to get me to say yes. And
Yeah.
I said, I can't do it, Coach. I appreciate it, and I'll do my best. And I wish you guys the best this season. Long story short, we hang up. And I didn't tell anybody the story because I couldn't tell. What am I going to tell?
Yeah.
I got called and I turned it down. You know,
Yeah.
So I except my wife. My wife's like, "Are you kidding me? You turned down Mater. What do we do? What are you doing?" We had that conversation. I'm like, "It's going to be okay." She's like, "You were thinking about leaving, and now you got this opportunity." I'm like, "It's not right. I can't do that to the kids. Everything I've preached my whole life, you got to be who you are."
Yeah.
And as the Lord would have it, they had a temporary line coach, and there's a bigger story in it, but I'm not going to spend more time telling it. And so I went and watched him practice, and he saw me at the practice because I called him and said, "Can I come?" Because we made the playoffs, but we lost. I asked him, "Can we come watch you practice? I just want to see him in action." And Mater Dei was an athletic haven when I stepped on. Just basketball going on over here, girls soccer going on over here, track being practice, and this is September. Or no, this is October and early November because it's championship now. So, but everybody's practicing. There is no room on any fields. It's like an athletic haven, and I was just like enamored. I walked on, I watched them practice, and after practice, about midway through the practice, I told Rollo, I said, "Hey, thanks. I'm going to take in my car. I'm going to beat the traffic. I'm going to go home." He goes, "Let me walk you to your car." And he walked me in my car, and he said, "I got your right number, right?" He goes, "I'm going to give you a call at the end of the season." And I said, "Okay." I'm thinking, what does that mean? I don't know. He didn't really say it. And I did know of the line coach he actually hired. So I felt bad because I knew him. So I didn't want to talk poorly of him or say he was good or bad. So I stayed away from it. And as the Lord would have it, a month and a half later, he contacts me and says, "Hey, I want you to come down and do an interview, and we'll see how it goes." And I told you what happened. So that's how I ended up at Mater Dei. And again, Modern day's an amazing place, very spiritual. Again, I'm going to preface this because there's a lot going on right now, and some things came up in the paper last week. But it happens in any school, and it's sad. Those things, I feel bad for the victims, and it should never happen. But unfortunately, as human beings, people make poor choices, and not to demean modern day. When I was there, it was amazing. And I became a better person spiritually. I became a better person as a leader. They believed in me. I was a teacher, and then they came to me and said, "We need you to be a dean." And I said, "Oh, I'm not interested in being a dean. I want to be a football coach and a teacher." That's who Ed Begany is. I found my niche, winning championships, and I'm happy. I had a kid, and things are going well. And they're like, "You need to go into administration." And I'm like, "I don't want to." And they're like, they had every AP talk to me because a dean spot opened. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put my app in. And then the day it was closing, the president, who was the principal at the time, sends his secretary to my class to cover the class. And I go see Mr. Murphy, and Pat Murphy, who's now the VP of the Dogs, the hockey team in Arizona. Anyway, he was the principal. And I go see him, and he's got his glasses half down. And I walk in, and he goes, real simple conversation. He says, "You didn't put your application in yet." And I said, "Mr. Murphy, about that." I said, "I just don't. Ed Begany is a teacher and a football coach. I'm not a dean of students. I don't aspire to do that." And he looked up at me, and he says, "My secretary is going to cover your class. You're going to turn in your resume, and we see something in you that you don't see in yourself." And it was pretty straightforward. I was like, "What do you mean I don't see it in myself?" I'm like, "I see a lot in myself. I'm pretty confident." But he was right. I didn't think about that. And my first year was very difficult because I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, holding kids accountable, and they hated me. And then I realized I had a colleague, Brenda Yecke, take me out to lunch at the end of the first year, and she said, "You need to stop being somebody else, and you need to start being you. And the moment you start doing that, you're going to be a lot better."
And thus starts what a great segue into Ed in the world of academia. I love that. We're going to take a break.
Let's talk about academics.
Academics, yeah.
Not my wheelhouse, but I'm good at it now.
We on?
Yeah. Go ahead and just readjust your mic there, Ed. If you can just pull that a little closer up to your mouth.
Is that better?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. And try not to scream into the mic.
I know, really. All right, we're back. We're going to segue back now into the academic world. You're a principal at Huntington Beach High.
Assistant principal.
Assistant principal?
Yeah.
Okay, I got that wrong.
Yeah. That's okay. I just don't want my principal to get mad.
Yeah.
You'll go, "Hey, I'm the boss."
I'm the boss. Yeah, I'm the boss.
No, it's still, there's 3 assistant principals at a high school. Generally, it depends on how large the high school is. Huntington Beach High School is 3,000 students. 2,300 students are Huntington Beach students. And we have another 750-ish that are APA, Academy of Performing Arts. And it's kind of a school within a school. And it's amazing if anybody's listening out there and loves theater. It's the best of the best kids in the county apply to this school and get in. And it's not just acting, it's behind the scenes, it's setting up mics, it's sound, it's lighting, it's everything. It's building of scenes. It's and they do some amazing work, and they amaze me.
That's one of the things that's why Brian, my son, sitting here with all of this electronics and the sound and the lighting. That's his interest got started when he was at Millikan and was doing stage. And you can jump in anytime and help.
I couldn't plug in any one of those wires. No. I'm not sure I know where the electrical outlet is.
Well, and then you take all the stuff that we're doing, and then he has to take it all and put it together, and he's got to edit it, and But that's why I pay him so well.
Can you make me look thinner on on that picture?
I can actually, if you'd like.
Nice. Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Please do, because the picture puts on about 100 pounds. So I'm actually a lot thinner than you guys think I am. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Ed looks great.
Yeah.
Ed looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah, it's the facial hair that's really making him look really hot and sexy right now. Hey, let's go. Okay, like we were talking about the stage stuff and all the things that that you were talking about with performing arts. What a great avenue for a lot of young kids, because we just got done talking 2 hours about sports and coaching, and not everybody is geared to be an athlete.
Absolutely.
There are people that are out there that are extremely talented, but their talents lie in a different arena.
Correct.
And to have the outlets that some of the schools have for these kids is great, because I watched, Brian, and what Brian's doing here. We make light of it because it's it's a small startup podcast that I think the most views we've had so far, is less than 200 on one, but we're year number 14. So it's gaining some momentum, but it takes time, it takes effort. But we wouldn't be where we're at right now without, Brian sitting there handling the lighting, handling the sound, and, and he's got that interest from school.
You bring up some excellent points, including like I couldn't carry a note if my life depended on it. I can't sing,
Right.
And to hear a young person belt out a song and go. I had the opportunity to see Matt Mauser. I didn't put two and two together. He has an amazing voice, and it sounds like Frank Sinatra. He sings a lot of oldies. And we went to Cerritos Performing Arts, Cypress. Anyway, the Performing Arts on Friday night, and watched him for 2.5 hours. He is, his wife was killed in the plane crash with Kobe Bryant. She was the basketball coach. I didn't know that at the time. And so we listened to him sing, and I love to go to live music now. There's another friend of Debbie's family, who I'm dating now. He plays in the Pollen Collective group, and they play all these local, like a beer brewery or something like that, different places. And it's amazing. I just love live music now. I have a found appreciation for people who can sing, play instruments, do this, because it's not in my wheelhouse. I'm not, when I sing something, my daughter says, "Dad, who sings that?" And, I don't know, I'll say whatever, Chris Bryan or whatever. Okay, let him sing it, not you. That's who she is, I'm like, ha, ha, ha. But she has an amazing voice. She sings in the shower, and I'm just like, can you lower that? I'm trying to watch TV. My granddaughter, and Brian, text your mom too and find out what grade Caitlin is in. I want to say that next. Yeah,
should have known that.
I know it. I should. But I believe that next year. The reason I say this is because I believe next year she'll be going to Huntington.
Oh, really?
And she has been accepted to sing at Carnegie. She's got a voice that is just unbelievable.
Okay, so she's probably going to be an APA then.
Maybe so.
Probably. If she's that good, she's going to be an APA.
She is that good.
Well, I'm excited. Then I might see you a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But also too, my other granddaughter is at Huntington High.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's a cheerleader. A freshman cheerleader.
I'm going to have to call her in.
You're going to have to call her in. Yeah, that'd be so fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's get back to academia.
Yeah, because let's go. Let's back up. Okay, well, before we took the break, you became the dean at Mater Dei, and that was not your start in academia, because you've been a school teacher, but that was your start in administration.
Yeah, I was a teacher for 10 years. I was a bio teacher and a math teacher, and I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life, be a coach. And I was approached by Mater Dei to be a dean of students, and God had a different plan. And so I became the dean of students, and very difficult first year for me, because I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. I said that earlier. And, regardless of who you are, you've got to be that person in your job to be, because kids see you right away if you're fake.
Right.
And I tried to be a hard person and call everybody out. And of course, my name was in the bathrooms all the time. And, you know, my all the janitors were like, "You're famous again. You're in the bathroom."
Yeah.
And you know, and
popular guy.
Everybody's like, "Oh, you've arrived," and I'm like, "I don't even want to arrive." You know, but I wanted to make a difference in a kid's life, and because 98% of the time you're dealing with negative things in discipline or being a dean. And dean is kind of a mid-level management. It wasn't an assistant principal. A dean is that, you know, right below an assistant principal at that level. And my second year, a colleague of mine took me out and said, "Ed, you just stop trying to be somebody you're not. And stop trying to hold everybody accountable and thinking that everything they did was against you. Don't be that person." And so I learned right then, my second year, I was a way different person, and it was way, way better. And I realized, okay, this is who I'm supposed to be.
Did it take some time? You know,
It did.
for that thought process to resonate with you,
Absolutely,
and then to make the proper changes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, she and I talked in June because school usually ends in May, and we talked in June, and then school started back up again in August, and then you know, in August I'm like, okay, so these are I'm a goal oriented person, and I have professional goals, I have personal goals. I like to evaluate once a year. You know, I've coached at a camp in Gold Beach, Oregon, for 14 years, and I haven't done it in a couple of years, and they haven't run it because it's COVID. But when I was at Mater Dei, they invited me up, and first year they flew me up. The second year I said, "Let me drive if you pay for my gas." And I brought my dad up. He got the salmon fish, and the cool thing about that is there's many times my dad would be sleeping, and I'm listening to music, evaluating my personal goals and my professional goals. Am I who I think I am? Am I who I want to be? Am I fair, consistent? I always try every night when I became a dean, before I hit the sheets at night, I throw some cold water in my face and just look in the mirror and say, did I treat everybody with respect? Was I fair today to everyone? And if I have a feeling of someone I wasn't fair to, then I try to rectify it the next day. Maybe a colleague or a kid or a teacher or a coach or a player. You know, I mean, you know, the worst thing that I can ever be accused of is that I love people. And, you know, I aspired to, I hope that when I'm not on this earth anymore, that people remember me for that reason, not who I coached or the champion. You see, I'm not wearing any championship rings. The only ring I want to wear, I can't wear anymore. Right. That's the wedding ring. And, you know, but I'm proud of those rings because of when I look at them all, it's the players that won those rings, and I was a coach. And I was an instrument, and one as a player I won. But, you know, rings don't define me anymore. They did when I was younger. It was pretty important to me to win a championship, and I was driven. And I'm driven now to do different things in life, still make a difference in kids' lives. And there's a lot of need out there for our young people in today's time. And so I became a dean. I was there for 3 or 4 years and as a dean, and I was at Mater Dei for 12. And then I went to I didn't even know they had this. A headhunter come and call me one time to go to Fairmont Preparatory Academy, and they were interviewing for deans there. But deans there, it's like a back east model where if you're a dean, you're an assistant principal there. So it was a level up, and there was a jump in pay and everything else, and it afforded us the opportunity to have Lori stay home. Mm-hmm. And so she was able to stay home with Brooke, and that was awesome because I think that's really important, and it doesn't happen a lot today. Yeah. A lot of parents work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Sometimes they're single parents or grandparents or parents or those types of things. So on the 3rd year, I had an opportunity to a friend of mine called me from El Toro High School. She's the principal, and she says, you need to put in for this job at Laguna Hills High School. And it was an assistant principal job. And so I went to a basketball game, met the assistant principal from Laguna Hills, who's now, his name's Sean Bolton, now at Newport Harbor. And I was fortunate enough to get an interview, and I interviewed. I didn't know that there was an opportunity at Mission Viejo High School as well. And the principal from Mission Viejo High School called me after my first interview. And I thought they were going to say, we have a second interview, and the second round's on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And instead he says, you're the number one candidate in a pool of 122 people. And we'd like to have you at Mission Viejo High School be an assistant principal with us. And I didn't even know what to say. Of course, what am I going to say? No, I want to go to Laguna Hills.
Right.
And I found out later that they had kind of Rochambeaued for me because he wanted me at Laguna Hills. And so I was lucky that I ended up at Mission, an amazing principal.
So this was this is going to be your first
assistant.
That and an opportunity to work in a public school system because you've been at private schools all along.
Yes. Yeah. And I that's what was interesting. Like, I guess I didn't have any stress when I went to interview for the job because, I'm waiting to interview and the person to the right of me, I'm like, hi, my name is Ed Begany. And they're like, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. And I'm like, doctor? I don't have a doctorate's degree.
Yeah.
And, the person before me is going in now. Hi, I'm Ed Begany. Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm like, oh, crap, I don't think I even have a shot at this.
Yeah.
And, I did ask the secretary, how many people interviewed for the job? She said, well, you're going to be number 21. And I'm just like, wow. So, it's funny how the Lord works because I'm thinking, why would I be nervous?
Yeah.
I'm not nervous because I'm not getting this job.
Yeah.
So I went in there and it was a panel of 18 people in a U-shaped. 18 people. And they said, it was kind of interesting. They said, you have 30 minutes to answer 18 questions. And I said, okay. And I said, this must be the hot seat. And they all laughed. I try to break the ice a little bit. And they all asked their questions. And I did notice that, they all introduced themselves. And a principal and the principal from both high schools were there, and an assistant principal from both high schools were there in the panel. I thought that was interesting. I'm like, why would it just be an opening? But sometimes they do that, So,
right.
Ray Gatfield is the principal, an amazing man, just Dr. Ray Gatfield, and he was awesome. And the irony is we both went to the same high school at St. Paul, so he knew people I knew and knew of me before I even knew him. And I'm very blessed that way. That's somehow God's always connected, aligned the stars for me.
Right.
And so I get there and, he calls me and says, you have a choice to make. You go to Laguna Hills High School or Mission Viejo. Well, he's the principal from Mission. I'm not going to say, I want to go to Laguna.
Right.
So I said, it'd be an honor to.
So you literally had a choice.
I had a choice.
Out of 125 people.
Yeah, 22 or whatever. But
whatever that was, you ended up with a choice. Ed, where you want to go?
To me, I asked him, I said, well, what's the job description? Because there's so many different jobs when you're an AP.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I probably want you to be in charge of discipline, but I'm not sure yet. We'll see, figure out. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do discipline. I've just been doing discipline.
Right.
And I'm getting into the academia part of it and curriculum and instruction and stuff. So I'm kind of broadening my horizons. I'm not coaching anymore, except I'm doing some things. And it's funny how the Lord works because all of a sudden, I'm coaching coaches. And about 4 months in, the assistant principal in charge of athletics decides to take a principal's job in, I want to say, Illinois. Anyway, somewhere out there. And so the principal comes to me and says, I'm probably going to adjust your responsibility. You're still going to do this, but I want you to be in charge of athletics. And he goes, I knew that he was going to end up leaving eventually, so that you were my ace in the hole. So it made me feel better, but he made me wait to the end of the year to do it, which I was kind of like, why is that happening? But, it was perfect. And hit the ground running, and amazing place, Mission Viejo High School.
How long were you there?
4 years, from 2010 to 2014. And then in 2013, we were in Hawaii with the football team, and a good friend of mine, the principal, Terry Gussiff, principal at El Toro High School, called me when I was in Hawaii, and we had just found out that Lori had breast cancer. And she calls me, she says, I have good news. She goes, I have an opening, and I want you to come over to my school to be in charge of guidance and curriculum. And I said, Terry, I can't do it. And she goes, Ed, you got to really think this through. These jobs don't happen all the time, and I'll teach you how to be a principal. And she and I go way back. She was actually a fellow dean with me. I was her mentor back at Mater Dei, and then she became an assistant principal and then moved on. Okay, so, and we took master's classes together, so I had a connection with her. And she's like, you really need to think about this. And I said, I stepped outside because we were in a room, in Hawaii, and we're facing the ocean, and everybody's sleeping. And I stepped outside and I said, nobody knows, but Lori has breast cancer. And I don't know where this is going to take us. And I don't want to put you in a bad position. And so she goes, oh, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, then you're in my prayers. I get it. And she did say, she goes, Ed, this opportunity probably won't be here. So, but, well, we'll see. As the Lord would have it, 2 years later, that same opportunity opened, and Lori was in remission. And she encouraged me to take it. And so I went to El Toro. From 2014 to 2018, I was at El Toro High School. And I was in charge of athletics and guidance and curriculum. And so I did that. And then in 2018, my superintendent left. The superintendent of Saddleback became a superintendent at Huntington Beach.
Mm-hmm. And Saddleback is the district.
The district, yes.
Yeah.
And so he was very supportive through Lori's venture and our journey. And it was pretty impressive at Lori's funeral. We had 3 superintendents, 4 principals, and countless other principals. That says who she was. And I was pretty impressed. I was impressed that those people were there. But so he ends up going to Huntington Union High School District, which is literally 20 minutes from my house now because I live in Long Beach. And when there was an opportunity, he called and checking in on me one time, around Christmas time, said, we might have some opportunities. Said, there's no guarantees. He said, but I will hope that you will put your resume in, and thought about it, and I did. And I was fortunate enough to get a job at Huntington Beach High School. And love it there. I've been there since 2018 and hoping that that's my final destination and right in the sunset. We'll see.
Yeah. If it is, what a great place to.
Absolutely.
Huntington High has always had a great reputation. Academically, athletically.
Yeah.
Now listening to you talk, also now in the arts.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a very old school, over 115 years old.
Yeah, isn't it a cool school though? I mean, just really to look at. I mean, just there's also too a middle school that's not too far. I think just down the street from there,
Dwyer.
That is the same thing.
Yeah,
that old downtown kind of.
Huntington is the type of place that a lot of times I'll talk to students and they'll say, my mom went here or my dad went here.
Yeah.
And their siblings went there. It's a community like that. It's not a transit type community. And you're talking about athletics. Our baseball program is amazing, but all the programs, our volleyball program, our aquatics program. We were in the state championship this year and we lost, but amazing. Just great opportunities at Huntington.
Huntington is in a lot of ways. It's kind of like Long Beach, where there's a lot of history.
Absolutely.
And you can talk to, people who will say my grandparents or my parents went wherever, whatever school. It's like that with my mom. My mom graduated from St. Anthony's downtown.
Wow.
And then my kid's mother graduated from St. Anthony's.
Yeah.
And my son graduated from St. Anthony's. So it's, it has this historical kind of content to it. Yeah. As far as what they do. And I actually, I don't want to say I interviewed, but actually spoke to a coach for the strength and conditioning for St. Anthony's a couple of years ago. I thought, man, that'd be really kind of cool.
I think Lara, who was the head coach at Poly for years and then Warren High School, I think he's the head football coach now at St. Anthony's.
Yeah, didn't he just
recently? I think like a year or so. Yeah. He's quality. He was a defense coordinator at Poly when I was at Mater Dei.
Yeah,
and then he became the head coach, and he's He's a good man.
Yeah, yeah. I guess they're getting an all new
I know.
field and everything.
Yeah. I drive by Clark. It's looking good.
Yeah.
It's all torn up right now, but
Yeah.
only imagine.
I know.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. Let's kind of talk about the school system and the how are they dealing with today's world of children, especially with COVID, especially with there was the complete shutdown, and then there was at home learning online, then everybody went back. It's kind of a strange thing because there was almost a whole year.
Oh yeah, longer than that. Some school districts were down a year and a half, and some haven't gone back across the nation.
Right.
We had a year where it was online learning. I was still going to work every day, all the admin, and most of the teachers were teaching from school, but had the option to teach at home. You talk about technical support. They, all of a sudden overnight, and thank God we were one-to-one Chromebooks with our students, and we had done that the year before COVID. So that allowed the opportunity for the students to learn at home. So because not every kid has a computer. You would think they would, and for the most part they do, but there are families that can't afford it, right. And some don't even have Wi-Fi and those types of things. So,
right.
We offered Wi-Fi packs to kids so they can learn and stuff. It's a very unique time in education. Very challenging. A lot of learning loss has transpired, which means, people can say what they want, but when a kid doesn't come to school and there's not that one-on-one interaction,
correct,
in a 1 to 37 environment, in a classroom where they can see Johnny's face or Samantha's face, and they're able to, he doesn't understand it. Let me walk over, and while you guys are doing work, I'm talking to them one-on-one and try to help them, or they can go up and ask a question. There was a law that kids, the state of California said you didn't have to turn on your camera. So you had a variety of things going on where some kids would log in, turn their camera and mic off, and then go play video games or watch TV or watch Netflix. And we have a lot of kids that are credit deficient now because they got Fs, and a lot of teachers. Kudos to all the teachers and the educational system for doing their best. I mean, we constantly talked about giving kids the benefit of the doubt, trying to adjust workloads and be kind with grades. Kids, one thing I have to say, kids earn grades, teachers don't give grades. And,
right.
We say that regularly, and a lot of parents go, that's not true. But working in the educational industry, a lot of times kids are successful in spite of a teacher. Even if you have a poor teacher, there are certain kids that are getting A's,
right?
Even if it's not taught properly. And it's just like anything else. There's a cross-section in education. You have your amazing teachers, and you have your bad teachers, and then you have teachers that are average, if you will.
Yeah.
To me, the opportunity to teach is a gift. And there's a saying, those who can't teach, which I completely disagree. And I say those who can teach. And I've learned so much in my life from some amazing teachers, coaches.
Right.
And my hat goes off to the educational process. And now it's been very interesting for me being on one side of the parochial system, Catholic system, seeing a lot done with very little money, and then getting into the public system. And there's not as much money as people think.
Right.
Maybe 25 years ago there was. Now we're all on skeleton crews, and it's been a little better in the last year or so. They have given us some grant monies and different things, but the hard part is that it's earmarked for certain things. Yeah. What they need to do, and there's a thing called LCAP, Local Control Accountability Program, where there's people that decide where certain monies go. So there's certain monies that go to schools, and then the principal and other people are able to say, we need more Chromebooks, we need this, we need that. And a lot of times districts are good, but districts are also challenging because they see it from a different lens, and they make a decision on something that money should go there instead of, I'm in the front line and we haven't had new books in 10 years, and books are becoming obsolete, especially with one-on-one Chromebooks. But that's a whole nother story. The book industry has realized that it's all becoming more electronic. So they're charging site licenses for books, and it's almost the same amount for a hard book,
right,
because they're still paying teachers to develop content, right, and stuff, but they're not having to print the book.
You can pretty much assume that was going to end up happening.
Correct.
Once hardbound books start to wane, they're going to have to make up that deficit in some way.
I mean, I redid the library when I was at Fairmont Preparatory Academy, and they said we want our library redone, so we redid the library. And instead of buying books, like everybody's like, well, what kind of new books are we going to get? We actually threw away 3/4 of the books, and we created search engines, and there are academic sites out there that you can just you have to pay for.
Right.
But let's say I'm a student and I want to look up Shakespeare. I go up on that site and I put Shakespeare, and then all these articles come up, and it's everything from his livelihood to his citing his works to everything. And so it's way different than when you and I grew up, you
right,
know, looking an encyclopedia up or, you know, copying something down. Now, you know, these kids Google everything, and, you know, I Google everything. I get up, I mean, I ask Alexa, you know, everything. I mean, from what's the day going to look like, what's in the news, to how old is Tom Brady? Tom Brady is 40 years old, you know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but getting back on track as far as what it looks like, there's a boatload of learning loss for kids.
Right.
Parents have done kind of the best they can. They were given a very...
It's a huge task for parents. You know,
Well,
they weren't prepared for that type of a task. Luckily, and I'm going to give a little small story about our girls at in-home learning. Did the best that they could, but I found it was really difficult because they would start school at, say, 8:30, and then they would go pretty much nonstop until about 1:30 or 2 o'clock.
Correct.
And have, I think, like a 30-minute break for lunch. But outside of that, there were no breaks.
Right.
And to watch them at 17 years old, or 16 at that time, sit in front of a computer nonstop, and then get a couple hours of homework, again, back on the computer, just seemed so unrealistic. You know, and they were forced to do it. And my girls, one of this, and I'm just going to vent right now. My one daughter was looking for to go from, and it's a type of the color of robe, because went from 6th grade all the way to graduation with straight A's.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. Doing great until COVID. One class. 1 point from getting an A, 1 point. And the teacher wouldn't give it to her. And we called. Can you give her extra credit? No, I don't do that. And I thought, what the fuck
Right.
is our world coming to when you have a kid that's got a 4.2 grade point average, that has proven herself for all these years, and now 1 point, and she won't realize her dream of what she wanted to do, and at graduation this year now won't get to do it.
I feel bad for her.
Yeah.
It's horrible. There's nothing positive there. I mean, as far as that happening, but what I will say is it doesn't diminish what she has done.
No.
It's amazing. And because she doesn't get to wear a different color robe and everybody else does, or whoever
whoever
that did, she still should be commended for what she's done. And I'm sure, you know, it's an opportunity, a learning opportunity.
As a parent, it's an opportunity for us to counsel her, to talk to her, to
Yeah.
help her look at the other
It doesn't
side of
make
the
it
story.
any easier.
But it is not easier. And
No,
I look
I
at
agree.
it, and I look at this, and this is just one of the areas where teachers, instructors have an opportunity, educators have an opportunity to do something for these kids, to help them grow, and deliberately said no.
Yeah. I will say this, to support the teachers, many of them would have helped.
Yeah.
It's like our society, there's good people and bad people.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a reason that happened though. And you don't know why. I don't know why. And
we don't know.
As a fellow parent and understanding, we can all cite things that went wrong with our children. But my failures make me who I am. And, son's going to come up tomorrow. It's not a death sentence, but
yeah,
it's something that she would be proud of for the rest of her life. And that's the hard part. It's like losing a championship game by a point and saying, but you still made it. Yeah, but I didn't get a ring.
Didn't get the ring.
And we're not in that book. It doesn't say, we were champions that year. It was somebody else that got the
And
championship.
the only reason I really bring that up, outside of the pure disappointment that Lexi had, and just the unwavering, position that the teacher took for no reason. I bring it up because those were such trying times,
Right.
Not just for Lexi, not because of just this one situation, but sitting in front of computers and so many kids, and like you said, there's this deficit now because of it. And
It's huge.
And I think about the children that missed their freshman year. What a great year that is. They finally got themselves out of middle school, and we're going to go, and missed the whole year, and then had to come in the following year, no longer a freshman, and supposedly expected to know things a little bit differently. And
It was horrible at the beginning of the year. I'm doing some discipline now too. We had kids that hadn't been in school for a year and a half, and now they're sophomores.
yeah,
And so it's different behavior, or homeschooled for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And being in a school with 3,000 other students, things happen, and people say stuff, and social circles and harassment and all this stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened for a while because different things were happening online. I don't want to even get into that.
Correct.
It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I could tell you some stories, but it was very interesting. It's a different time. And, speaking from my personal life, my daughter was in college and very disappointed that, do you realize she just completed her degree at Long Beach State, and she took one class in 2 years in person at Long Beach State.
Isn't that crazy?
And it was a 1 day a week Thursday class. And she said, Dad, she goes, I'm really disappointed about that. And I said, unfortunately, honey, that, and she's not the only one. There's other students that did that.
Yeah.
There are some students that won't put a step on a college because they can do it online, but that's a choice. She didn't have a choice, and like now they're all going back to the online thing because, the pandemic's gone up. That's a big thing. Learning loss is a big thing. And I don't think we're really going to see it. You'll hear about it in the next few years in college. I know a lot of college professors personally, and they all talk about how a lot of times now our kids are not able to write paragraphs, not able to write essays correctly. And some of it's just writing itself. And this isn't helping that, and the texting, the kids, create their own words in the TGIF or whatever they do. And, I'm like, half the time I have to ask my daughter, what does this mean?
Right.
And she goes, oh, Dad, that means da, 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 da. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know that? Yeah. And she laughs at me. But, it's a whole different, and she's a comm major, so she knows all this stuff.
Well, also, too, one of the biggest bonuses or side effect bonuses of going to school is the social aspect
Correct.
of learning how to get along, learning how to communicate, learning how to be around people in groups. And now social media has taken a lot of that away. And then you take the pandemic and you pull them out of school and you make them stay home. Right. And they can't get out of home because they can't go anywhere. And it's like, now what do they have? They have social media. I mean, you talk about two worlds colliding and making one situation even worse. Okay, we got a pandemic. We're shutting down. No school. Go home. Stay at home. You're going to go social, or not social, but at home learning. And then on top of that, here's a cell phone so you can get on Instagram and text. And what's going to happen?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. I do know, being involved in it, a lot of amazing stories. Some teachers are unbelievable and have stepped up so much. My girlfriend, Debbie Knowles, she's a second grade teacher, and she taught last year all online. How do you teach a second grader online?
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes we'd have a day off and I'd go over and watch her teach, and I was just amazed. I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And she's calm, cool, and collected, and God bless people like her, because she actually volunteered, because there's 3 second grade teachers, and one of them had to teach online. And so she said, I did it the year before, so I volunteered because my other colleagues didn't feel comfortable. And God bless her, for doing that. And she's back in school, and I actually I had a day off a month ago. We had different vacations for Christmas, and I got the opportunity to go and read a book to her class, and it's pretty cool to see, because second graders are in a world by themselves. Yeah. And I don't even know if I could teach second grade. That's crazy.
My daughter, older daughter, is a teacher. He's getting a little bit closer here. Is a teacher for over at St. Hagway's.
Oh, okay.
And she last year had first grade. And so it was online, first grade.
How?
Yeah. How do you keep, you can't keep their attention when you're there face to face in the schoolroom, let alone on the computer, and then try to reach everybody and oh my gosh.
It's the elementary teachers, they really are the unsung heroes.
Yeah.
And the support staff. Everybody's done their best in this pandemic. And I never imagined when I first got into education that this would ever come to something like this.
Right.
Like, I still remember the first day, they told us, hey, we're going online. What do you mean we're going online? Starting Monday, everybody's online because it's the court order. That's what we're doing. And I'm like, how does that work? Yeah. What do we do? And you talk about learning on a curve, and, the train left the station, and we're all trying to make decisions, and we're not perfect. Right. And we're trying to do our best to support students, teachers, custodial staff, everybody to be safe. I'm not a scientist. I don't whether to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. I'm just going to listen to what they tell me,
right?
And hope for the best. I'm a rule follower by nature, so I'm just going to do what I got to do. But I do hope that in the near future, things get back to normal, whatever normal is going to be.
I think but my impression of it is I believe that elementary school, middle schools, high schools are going to get back to some kind of normalcy of in-school learning.
Yeah.
Sports will be back. Activities as theater and arts and everything will be back. There'll be learning at school and the face-to-face. College, I think that they are starting to see that if we do a cross section of
a blended learning.
Blended learning. You can be here if you want, or you can do offline, because they're looking at it as, okay, we have a class and we have theater seating that can fit 100 people in there. Wait a minute, if we go online, we can do 5,000.
Yeah.
People.
And see, I teach online. I've taught online the entire time. Yeah. So for me, at first it was difficult. Because I was an in-person teacher. So, you have to share screens and learn how to do that and, this and communicate a little bit better, a little clearer.
Sure.
And, you're answering questions and I'm calling my students and stuff. But it's just difficult, especially like in high school. I mean, the average class size is 37 for us. And, that means a teacher might have 160 students-ish. That's a lot of students.
Yeah.
And, from when I think what it proved is that blended or online learning can have an upside to it, but it is not the sole. I don't envision us ever going to a full online learning society where, grade school is all online because
I don't think so.
Parents are got to work and we visited students that weren't doing well or not turning their cameras on, and a handful of students that I can speak to is I knock on a door and they come up and their little brother's right behind them, and I go, how come your camera's off? Mr. Begany, I got to take care of my little brother and he's in the bathroom, so I got to leave my camera off, or I got to make him dinner, or I'm going to make him lunch, or he's sick right now, and it's a single mom. I call mom and mom's like, Mr. Begany, you can say what you want, but I got to work. And if I don't work, we don't live in that apartment. We don't live in that apartment. He ain't going to your school. So just so you know, and I'm like, what do I say? I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to do what's best for your son because he's currently getting an F in that class. So there are some teachers that do understand. Some have students themselves, and I think that helped the situation because they were able to. Oh, this isn't as easy as they think it is,
right?
And I mean, I know the workload for a fact decreased because I talked to our teachers, and that's helped, but it's not a perfect situation. And the kids who are they can teach themselves stuff. Those kids didn't have a problem with the pandemic because they're okay. They'll figure it out.
Right.
Your straight A kids, the majority, not all, because some kids are interactive learning kids, and that's how they learn.
That's how, right.
And some kids have to be taught, or some kids can look online and figure out, oh, that's what I have to do in my trig class. Okay, I get what I did now. So there's lots of things that all of a sudden now we're realizing the inadequacies of our academics and what's going on. Still amazing. Kids don't understand and appreciate how important it is to go to school. Some kids want to graduate early. Some kids want to move on. They can take a test in high school called the CHESP, and they can go on to community college. We try to, talk kids out of it because of that social aspect. They're not ready for college. It's important that they continue and if they're struggling in class, to work with the teacher and communicate with the teacher. And if there are any parents out there, please, if you're having trouble with a teacher, reach out to the teacher. They're human beings. They have bad days too. They have good days. Their husband might have prostate cancer. Their mother might have just died 2 nights before. There's issues there. They might be battling cancer themselves and nobody's talking about it. I mean, so there's, reasons for things, but communicate with them, because the majority of teachers that are teachers are amazing people. Right. And I can make a lot more money instead of the job I'm doing right now. I make decent money. I'm not saying that, but I can make a lot more money in the business sector doing almost the same thing. I manage. I put out fires every day. I'm a fireman because there's problems. I have 15 to 20 problems a day that I have to deal with, and I have to find the right solutions and talk to kids, parents, and teachers, and other administrators, and maybe law enforcement. I could do a whole podcast on issues at a school.
Yeah,
it's pretty fun. But we had a homeless person stole our maintenance cart a week ago, and that was an interesting one. Watching them drive
off with,
and it ended up at the beach. So, it's
better than a shopping cart.
Correct. But I mean, it's challenging. We live in a very challenging world right now.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting part is I remember when the pandemic first started and there was a shutdown and everybody was going to, stay at home and learn from home and it was going to be online. Oh, the our two girls were just upset. We don't want to be at home. We want to be back. It's just, of course, you're going to listen to all the rhetoric about, how stupid it is. But then a year later, it's time to go back to school. And it was like, we don't want to go back.
Right.
We don't want to go back. They got used to it. And I think it's just a matter of whatever it is that they're being thrown into, they adjust.
Change is difficult with anybody, but especially young people are pretty adaptive. The problem that some of them had were managing their time properly, because now, like you said, okay, they're in front of a computer from 8 to 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then they have an additional 1 or 2 hours of homework. And if they're in an AP class, 3 or 4, maybe 5 hours of homework.
Right.
And so all of a sudden they find themselves doing nothing but sitting in front of a computer. And the mental health of a lot of our students right now is very questionable, and it's in trouble.
Yeah.
Depression, anxiety, it's at an all-time high.
All-time high.
And it's real.
Yeah, it's very real. I talked to our girls about it. I don't think that they are probably experiencing it on the level that a lot of other kids are, but anxiety is there,
right?
And are the schools addressing that?
We're trying to. It's difficult because there's only so much time in a day. How do I say this? We at Huntington Beach we have in-services on different types of training, and it's important that our teachers continue to understand what our students are going through. And it's successful, but it's never going to be what it needs to be. Mm-hmm. We're very fortunate at Huntington Beach High School we have 3 school psychologists. So, if a student's having a bad day, there's an iPad, you check in, you get seen by somebody. That doesn't happen at many high schools, but we're very fortunate to have that. And there's a lot of great people, including myself, that, sometimes, like I talked to a young person the other day, and they can't wrap their head around this, and they're a senior, and they're in my office crying, and I'm sitting there. I'm not a school psychologist, although I know how to counsel kids because I've been doing this for 30 plus years. But I really don't have the professional answers that they need, but I have compassion. I have understanding.
And a lot of times that's
what they need.
Because
that person acted out inappropriately in a class. And a lot of times when students act out, there's something deeper than the surface. It's not because something happened. There's other issues underneath that it's important to try to get to, and that's my job, to communicate and find out why is that kid saying this, acting this way, doing this, cutting class. Why do they not like school? Not every kid likes school. Not every kid. We've gotten away from wood shop. We've gotten away from auto shop. We've gotten away from some of the things that some of the kids aren't high academic. I have 2 classic cars. I wish I had an auto shop at my school because I'd be down there as much as I could.
Just wrenching away.
Exactly.
Well, and I think you bring up really a good point too. And part of this, I got to point the finger at parents. They think that little Johnny needs to go to college. Well, first of all, his grades don't show that he's college material. Secondly, he's never liked school to begin with. And there might be just that thing, that opportunity that he's a hands-on kind of guy.
Right.
That being a mechanic,
an electrician, a plumber, things that we need in our society.
Yeah.
And you are hitting the nail on the head. We forget that. And, we have a thing called A through G to make sure that kids are 4-year university ready. And everything's a push towards a college. And there are kids that are intelligent, and not every billionaire has gone to school.
No.
I mean, there are people that are successful in businesses that dropped out in high school.
Right.
And they're successful because they're intelligent and they just didn't want to go through with the rhetoric of, the cookie cutter concept of education.
I can't tell you how many people I have met in my industry, in the construction field, in heavy equipment, that didn't finish high school. And even if they did finish, never went to college.
Yeah.
And started a business in the construction, in the trades, started a business and are worth millions today.
Right. And I try to explain to kids, like when I was a math teacher, money isn't success. Happiness is success. And that's why, growing up, my dad was a phone repairman. He didn't like his job. He, quite frankly, hated it, but it put food on the table for his family. And I admire him for that. And, but my brother and I, my mom would hear him complain every night at the dinner table how he hated his job. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, if there's one thing in this world, when I get old enough to make a decision for myself, I'm going to do something that I enjoy, something that I don't look at my job as a job. And don't get me wrong, there are days I'm driving home going, why am I even doing this?
Right.
When can I retire? This isn't going to be soon enough. But I'm going to say for the most part, 98% of the time, I'm driving home going, wow, I had a tough day, but I made a difference in the kid's life. Or I got to talk to this kid. Tomorrow I got to follow up with him. Or like we have 2 or 3 blind students that are at Huntington Beach High School, and I try and say hi to them as much as I can because I can't believe how they exist. It's amazing. I can't imagine not having my sight. My mom was in a car accident when she was pregnant with me, and she lost sight of one eye. And seeing her struggles go through life. So it wears in my heart, but
sure.
Kids that have it difficult, and they're if you ask them, they don't have it difficult, and they're brilliant. The 3 kids that are at Huntington Beach High School that are blind using a cane and everything else, they have amazing personalities, and I talk to them and they'll crack jokes and say things that you're like, oh my God, how'd you come up with that?
Yeah.
Or in the classes they're reading Braille and the books in Braille or the they can hear it, or kids that are deaf, so there's a combination of things. But getting back to our society and what's going on, I don't know if we will really know how this has affected kids for years to come. I think we're going to figure it out in about 8 to 10 years when we see those kids that are now in the field doing jobs. And we met 2 years ago, we met with Golden West College. And it was an interesting concept that we were talking about future. It's when I was doing curriculum, we were talking about future jobs. And, some of the ideas in the room were like, well, how do we better prepare kids for jobs?
Right.
And one of the comments from a dean there, he said, well, you do understand that within 10 years, about 80% of the jobs that we're trying to prepare for kids aren't even on the table yet. We don't know what those jobs look like. So we're saying, come to college, do this, and you're going to be successful. But it doesn't change that you need, read, write, arithmetic, the basics. You and I don't sit here, Brian doesn't sit there without being able to read and write and figure things out and know how to use Alexa or YouTube. But still, so the basics haven't changed, but specifics have changed a lot. And talking to Brooke, my daughter, some of her friends aren't going to finish college, and because they say, why should I finish college? What I want to do, you don't need a degree to do. Like you were talking about, some kids. I have one kid that graduated 2 years ago, and I asked him, I said, so what college are you going to? He goes, Coach, I'm not going to college. I said, oh, okay. I go, you got an idea what you're going to do? He goes, I already got a job lined up. He goes, I'm going to go be an apprentice, be a plumber. He said, Mr. Begany, within 5 years, I'll be making $200,000 or plus. He goes, and my goal in 6 years is to open up my own business, my own plumbing business. He goes, I'll come look you up. You're going to need your toilet unclogged. And I laughed. I'm like, I probably will.
Yeah.
But there's an example of kids thinking outside the box. And
we need more of that.
We do.
And I think a lot of that does come from parents. Parents need to allow their children to think outside the box. You don't need – one of the issues that I had – and fortunately both of my girls are college bound. They already know one wants to be an attorney, one wants to be a veterinarian. So they have a path. Whether or not that's what they ultimately end up with, we will see. But it's a plan, and they know that going to college is a necessity for what it is that they think they want to do. But even on top of that, and I don't know what you call it in school, when the counselors get with all of the students and prepare them to put applications out to go to college.
College and career counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So part of it is you need to put at least 5 or more applications out. Okay. I can do that for my girls at $75 or $100 per application. How many families can't?
Right. And there's a thing called FAFSA. The government does offer opportunities for families that can't afford it. Again, like you're saying, like when Brooke my daughter was in high school, I said, you apply to wherever you want to go. I will pay the application fees. Don't worry about it. She picked 10 schools. I also said I would take you there except for Hawaii, because I knew she just wanted to go to Hawaii. She wasn't going to go there, but she wanted to go visit. And I said, that's one place we're not going. So we went all across the United States. She ended up at University of Arizona. Then when Mom got sick, she came home. And then she just graduated from Long Beach State, which I'm very proud of, because it's it's in our backyard.
It's in our backyard.
It's amazing.
I talked to our girls. I said, why don't you go to Long Beach State? Oh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. I don't want to be home. So Lexi got accepted at Hawaii, so, she's thinking about, going
It's just
there.
way different. It's island time there, man. There's a lot of idle time. Like I've had athletes go to Hawaii. Colt Brennan and Sila Lafiti played for them, and they come back and they go, Coach, it's just slow down.
Yeah,
there's no hurry for anything.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. Like when even my daughter, I'm like, you won't even last in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because you like the busyness of this and stuff. So
yeah, and I'm thinking that would be the case too. And so Maddie got accepted at Chapman. So, there's a start. Now we're still waiting for
financial aid and stuff.
Well, no, we're waiting to hear back from the other schools.
Got it.
These are the only two that.
Another thing that I'm going to say is it's really it's not looked at enough, but our community college programs.
Right.
I did that myself. My story is kind of unique, but Mom and Dad, I was the first one to graduate from college in my family. My mom and dad didn't graduate from college. They couldn't afford it. Their families couldn't afford it. And so when I was in grade school, my dad and mom said, you're going to college come hell or high water. So you better get good enough grades because you're going. It was one of those things. And then I get accepted to Whittier College. I was going to play football. And my dad sat me down and said at our graduation party, he said, well, your mom and I don't have the money to send you to college, but we want you to go. And I'm like, okay, whoa, slow down. I got to make some decisions then. And next day I drove down to Rio Hondo Community College and I enrolled and graduated from there in a year and a half. And from there I thought I was smarter than, I wanted to go to Whittier College, but I ended up going to Long Beach State, but the problem was it was impacted. A lot of classes were impacted. So I was there for 2.5 years and then finally realized I needed to get out of college. I applied back to Whittier College and I had a high enough GPA. I graduated from there in eight months. And it cost me very little money too because I had a high GPA. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. And in California, I think we have the California Promise, which they'll pay for community college for 2 years for kids. Yeah, which is pretty cool, regardless of how much you make.
And I'm with you. I don't understand why. And here I'm going to push it off on parents because the parents are the ones that I talk to, the ones that I hear our girls talking about their friends, and it's almost became a one-upsmanship with absolutely. Parents on where are their kids going.
Oh yeah,
and it's like, at least I can say with Lexi actually keeps talking about community college. Yeah, starting out. Although it's the one that she wants to go to, if she did do a community college, is in San Diego, Mesa Verde, I think that is. But it's got apparently a great chemistry program, which would help her with being a veterinarian.
Got it.
So, but even at that, it's like, that makes more sense.
Right.
It makes
do
so
something.
much more.
Yeah, there's a lot of great community colleges, even locally. I mean, Cerritos is really solid.
Yeah.
Long Beach City is where Lori graduated from, and Brooke graduated from. She got her AA degree there, so I'm very proud of her for that. And it wasn't really her choice, but she owned it because you came back from a 4-year university. You can't, unless it's a private school, you can't get in anywhere. You can't apply your sophomore year to Long Beach State. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So we had that difficulty, but she wrote it out, and then she looked at a couple different places, and she got into a couple different places, but ultimately she chose Long Beach State, and I'm glad she did. It's a quality place, and so many young people across the nation want to come here.
Oh, it's
and
one of the
can't
most
get in.
It's one of the most sought after.
And our kids don't
schools.
want to go there.
And they got a free ticket, open door.
Are you kidding me? So,
Yeah.
God bless her though. She did it. So, and
Yeah,
she
good
doesn't
for her.
she's not going to call herself a shark. She's a 49er. She says through and through. So, I echo that. So,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, that's it'll be interesting to see what our girls end up doing. But it's been a challenging year or two, and to watch them in their last year, trying to figure out life and where they want to go and what they want to do. And
It's hard.
yeah, it's hard, but I've got faith in them that they're going to do good.
Awesome.
Buddy, I appreciate it.
And
Thank you
it's been
so
real.
much.
I've
man.
had such a blast with you, and
This is
thanks
so
for
good.
inviting me. Anytime you want to follow up on something, let me know. You're an amazing person. Shout out to Brian, and shout out to your family. Jill, I want to say one thing before we leave. Jill, she doesn't even realize it, but I saw her after Lori passed at John's, and we were talking, and she encouraged me to continue to go forward with things, life in general. And it was very, I took it to the heart. So tell her I appreciate her, I love her. You guys are amazing. And I don't know where I'd be without Gina in Brooke's life.
Right.
She's like a second mom to her. And
Yeah.
nobody can replace her. And my sister-in-law, Janie.
I'll tell you one thing, speaking of Gina. Gina made a promise, apparently, that, for her best friend, that she would always be there for Brooke. And I got it. And I have to say that watching Gina from the outside, she is, even going through the things that she has had to go through the last,
A lot of challenges.
the challenges that she's had to face, she has been steadfast.
Absolutely.
When it comes to
what
Brooke.
what a lady, and what a family. And Jill's right there. I mean, and Brooke, she walked into your house a couple weeks ago, and she just had tears when she came. When she goes, Dad, and she was doing finals. I kind of yelled at her a little bit. Sorry, Brooke. When she got home, because she was trying to get some finals done, and she's like, Dad, hold on. She goes, here's what happened, and then she went into the whole story, and I'm like, okay, I get it. And she. She wants to see family like that. And
well, it was. I mean, I had to take a double look because she was there. It's like, oh my gosh! And then it was she just blended right in. Yeah. I mean, she was family.
That's who you guys are, though. You're awesome, and thanks for this opportunity. I know it's a long one, but I appreciate what you've done, and for all the people out there. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. You can do anything you want to do it, but you have to work for it.
Absolutely.
Do work. And if you work hard enough, good things are going to happen. I've never seen a person that works hard and then bad things happen. And things happen for a reason. Sometimes we don't want the outcome that we get, but then there's a reason why that's moving forward, or that outcome happened, or this or that. So, if there's one word of encouragement, do work hard, and I appreciate the opportunity to just talk with you today.
This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, and it's going to be, everybody that's out there, please not only listen to this podcast, share it with others, and this is, a lot of openness and truthfulness and honesty has come out in this podcast, and share it. So with that, good night, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Love you.
Thank you.
Okay.